Here it is. Good evening, everyone. This is our board meeting for April 21st, and we did have a closed session. I will report out that there was no action taken in the closed session. And we will begin with the flag salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I went a little out of order there. Next are emergency modifications. There are no emergency additions or modifications. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. Approval of the minutes from March 10th meeting.
I will move to approve the minutes from March 10th.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0. We are now at our Ojai Unified Value Awards. And tonight our Rotary Peace Ambassador and OUSD Value Award recipients are from Nordhoff, Alessandra Lucchesi. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Lucchesi. That's
Lucchesi. And she's going to be introduced by Mr. Munson, our principal. And Dave, if you could take away the flag, David Rogers. Thank you.
David also made me the co-host.
Thank you. Sorry, David Munson. Go ahead, please.
That's okay. Hi, good evening. I'm Principal Dave Munson from Nordhoff High School, and it's my honor to present Alessandra Ali Lucchesi with the OUSD Value Award for Environmental Stewardship. Ali was nominated by Assistant Principal Jamie Rooney and Science Teacher Becky Perry. They both provided some comments about Ali I'd like to share with you. And this is from Assistant Principal Jamie Rooney. Ali just did a month-long intern program through Columbia University's Environmental Law Policy Earth Institute team. That's a mouthful. And she's been working with the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy as an intern this last year. And I believe that's been continuing on right now. She's been doing an invasive plant species removal lately, and she's also part of the Green Valley Project. So she's very busy when it comes to her environmental passion. And science teacher Becky Perry had this to say about Ali. She's gone above and beyond. This year, she has taken both chemistry and environmental science, which is not required, but demonstrates her passion for science and the environment. She recently did an oak restoration project with the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, and you can check out their video on YouTube. And she can often be found taking care of Nordhoff's native gardens after hours, which is located in our science wing. She's passionate about surfing and hiking, often going in the early morning hours before school. And Miss Perry said, Ali is just a joy to be around, and her beautiful smile and kind personality brighten each day. So in staying with the theme of environment, Miss Perry compares Ali to our sunshine. So it is with great privilege that we honor Ali Lucchesi.
Ali, would you like to say anything and tell us where you will be donating your award from Rotary?
Yeah, I would just like to start off. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's dedication towards our whole community, and especially our Ojai Unified School District. I really thank all the teachers who have encouraged me to go above and beyond and be sunshine. Yeah, I really appreciate OVLC and them allowing me to, to be experienced and get involved with my environment. And I really hope I'm sort of an image towards our peers and showing how the youth, as young as we are, we can be engaged and we have a voice and we can put an act towards what we believe in. So thank you all very much. And I chose the Ojai Raptor Center because I really admire what they do for our community and how they restore our wildlife. So thank you so much, everyone.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Good job, Lila.
That sounds like a lot of work you're involved in. Also for our Environmental Stewardship Award at our Topa Topa Elementary School, we have Tula Turner, and she's going to be introduced by, I think, Tracy Oakland or our principal, Don Mianos.
I'm here, Mrs. Damiano's principal at Topa. Mrs. Oakland couldn't be here this evening, so she asked if I could say some things about Tula. So I'm going to read what she wrote about her. Tula Turner is a second grader at Topa Topa, and she exemplifies all the qualities that we value in our students in our district. She's also a very positive and happy student, always smiling. She's kind to everyone and has a way of making those around her feel welcome and happy. She always does her best on all of her work and is even willing to give up free time activities in order to continue working on classroom assignments. Tula is extremely creative and loves creating and writing. Tula has a deep appreciation for nature and the environment. She often has a wonderful story to tell about an animal or something she has observed outside. She consistently does her part to take care of our classroom garden and observe our garden friends. Now I'm going to play for all of you a quick little song that she wrote with her sister Ireland, and it's about our Earth.
Hello, this is Tula with the Pixie Gems. The earth is so beautiful. It is a part of life. It lets us build houses. Earth is so nice. The earth is my friend. The earth is so beautiful.
So Tula, we love your song. Thank you for letting me share it. And I have a feeling someday you'll be back here again, just like Ali is getting an Environmental Stewardship Award. So good job. Do you want to say anything to everybody? Do you want to say hi?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tula. And I think you have decided to contribute your donation to the Girls Empowerment Workshop, which is a wonderful program we have at the Ohio Youth Foundation.
So I would like to thank and introduce Mike Weaver, who is from our Readiness Club. They are the sponsors of this award. This Peace Award is a collaboration, and I'm going to pause just a minute and just can't figure out. There you go. So Mike is here from the Rotary Peace Subcommittee, and
yes, I like to say the Rotary Club is very proud to join the school district in recognizing both of these students for their demonstration of the core values of the school and also Rotary's values. And they both get a certificate as well as the check and a letter recognizing them as a peace ambassador for the Rotary Club here in Ojai. So thank you for your work.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have our Friendship and Kindness Award recipients. Tonight we have Miners Oaks fourth grader John Martin and Miners Oaks teacher Amy Mendoza. And they will both be, oh, actually, I'm sorry, John's going to be recognized by his teacher, Richard Bird.
Hi, good evening. My name is Richard Bird. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Miners Oaks Elementary. I'm honored to be given the opportunity to present our Kindness and Friendship Award to John Martin. I've actually now had the great pleasure of teaching John for a second time. My first experience with John was when I was his PE teacher at Miramonte, and now I have him in my fourth grade class at Miners Oaks. And I can say with all sincerity that I am both a better teacher and a better person because of my experience with John. Not only does John have a heart of gold, but it never ceases to amaze me how such a little body can have such a big heart. John exudes kindness each and every day. His warmth, his compassion, and his honesty, both in class and on the playground, stand as a model to both students and teachers and serves as a testament to how we can all strive to be our best selves. Never once have I heard John say anything negative about another person nor complain about school. I believe that this is in fact a true testament of his kindness and a positive quality as a friend. It has been truly amazing to witness the acceptance of John by all of his classmates, which speaks volumes about his personifying goodwill and his regards for others. It is because of these characteristics that John possesses that I chose to nominate him for this very, very deserving award. So John, thank you for who you are and how you have taught us all. John, would you like this?
Thanks, Mr. Bird. Thanks, Miss Robles. Thanks, Mr. Colton. Thanks, Miss Dutter.
Congratulations, John.
And Mrs. Dutter is here to recognize her teacher. But first, I would just like to point out, Ms. Dutter, if you want to turn, I don't know if you can turn your camera around and we can see she is currently at Matilaha because we are recognizing our admin assistants.
Hey, hi, everybody. You're on the board
Today's
meeting.
Admin Assistant Day. And they are having a little admin assistant recognition event. And so Ms. Dutter's been organizing that and has stepped out to join us for this. So I just wanted to recognize also all of our amazing office managers and admin assistants in the district, including Kathy Smith, who is here not joining the group because she's here tonight in the boardroom helping us out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morris. I had to step out because there's so much hooting and hollering going on in there because they are having a great time. Thank you so much for your support with all the good food that you supplied for the event. I think it's been very, very successful. Thank you so much. And to those people who couldn't join in because they're here, thank you for your continued sacrifice on behalf of our district. But I am here because I have a couple of people that I have the privilege of honoring. The first person is Amy Mendoza, who's our 5th grade teacher at Miners Oaks. And she is so incredible. It's really hard for me to find just the exact words to describe her wonderful traits. But as soon as kindness and friendship came up, she was the first person I thought of. She's amazing. And some of our staff members really wanted to speak about her. I have so many wonderful comments that I had to narrow it down to just a few. But I'll share all the comments with Amy tomorrow. But one of the teachers had shared, I love working with Amy. She will be so missed because Amy's planning on retiring next year. But not only is she kind, she is funny and really cares about what each person is doing. She can also make light of any situation because, you know, sometimes school gets a little bit serious. And she's super fun and easy to be around. That's our Amy. Another person said, I just want to say that she is the most amazing teacher ever. I appreciate how much time and care she takes with my special needs child. She is kind, generous, and all around phenomenal. Mrs. Mendoza has quite a reputation of helping people new to the community understand how wonderful our schools are with Ojai Unified. And when she hears that they're in our neighborhood, she says, oh, you are in for a treat. And she actively recruits for our school, knowing that the new members to our community have a lot of really good choices, but she helps them see the fine points of our school. And she's very proud to be a teacher, and she spreads that pride around, and we are so appreciative. Laura Van Acker shared that working with Amy is truly collaborative. When coordinating with Amy about how to best meet the needs of one of her students with special needs, she shows a high level of care for the student, engages in problem-solving discussions, is flexible, and is willing to try various strategies to help give students the best educational experience possible. Not all teachers can do that. They may want to or may not want to. Amy wants to do it, and she does a phenomenal job doing that. She really honors the student with her best effort each and every day. And that's not just one student, it's the whole school. She does that for students and staff. And one of the last things that I'd like to share is one of our new staff members was in Amy's class when she was teaching poetry, and she was going over the haiku formula. And so Mrs. Hodge created a haiku for Amy. As you know, a haiku is, I wrote down the definition, I can't find it right here. It's a very specific formula, I think 17 syllables. I'll let Mrs. Mendoza elaborate on that one since I can't bring it off the top of my head, but this is a haiku. Always has a smile. She encourages others, teaches with kindness. That is Amy Mendoza, and I'm so glad we can honor her with being recognized today. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, John and Amy. Thank you for your kindness. Would you like to say something, Amy?
Well, thank you for doing this. It's a great honor, and the idea that I'm known for being kind is really all I want to be known for in life. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I work with the nicest people, so that's really easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening and joining us, and for what you contribute to our district. We hope you have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
One more, our volunteer award. So don't leave if you're our volunteer recognee.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm going to share, just because for our next volunteer recipient, we actually have 2 this month, which is great, but we have Ashley Kotzian, and Ms. Dutter may want to say something, but I wanted to share these beautiful pictures of the amazing bulletin boards that she's been creating at Miners Oaks. These are some of them, and having made bulletin boards before in my life, I cannot even tell you how many hours of work this represents and how much creativity. Ms. Dutter, would you like to say anything else?
I would. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, because Ashley embodies everything wonderful about being a good parent, being a good friend, and having a servant's heart by volunteering in so many different ways. The bulletin boards there, I'm so glad you had pictures of that, Dr. Morris, because I couldn't pull them up, and I knew with today's events I wouldn't be able to share my screen easily. And yet this is just the tip of the iceberg of what she does. Those bulletin boards take a lot of time. They're hard to convey the message that we want to have go across. And Ashley seems to have a gift in that area as well as others. She's a super thoughtful leader among the parent base and with the PTA people who are on the board. She's really great about talking to teachers about the needs and just intuitively knowing what people need and finding a way to provide that. She's a great problem solver. I love seeing her in action with her kids. So she's a great role model when it comes to family life. And she just kind of does it all. I could go on, but you get the message. She is fabulous. Ashley, thank you for all that you do. You really make me proud to have you on the team and to be a part of Ojai and Miners Oaks. So thank you, Ashley.
then our next recognition.
Is Ashley Lear here? Did she
yes.
want to?
Ashley is here. Yes.
Hi. Thank you very much. Thank you. Like Mrs. Mendoza said, it's just really easy when you have a great team, a great school, and we just love being there every minute, and we're just lucky we get to contribute as much as we do. So thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
So the next group of volunteers, and I just need to find where my screen just went. Hold on. Okay, I think, can you see that? No.
No, we saw it earlier.
Yes, sometimes it gets lost. Hold on. Oh, there. Now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a huge group of people, and these are all of the people from the community that made the vaccine clinic at Nordhoff High School happen. So we want to recognize the many, many hours that have been put in. I'm not sure if the community is aware that many of the hospital staff have been volunteering their own time on Saturdays. We have many physicians in the community who have been volunteering their own time. And I believe, actually, this scrolls. So these are our hospital volunteers. You may notice that the hospital or the vaccination clinic is not currently operating, but it's going to be back up and running on Saturday. We've switched from Moderna to Pfizer, and so it'll be open again for the community for the next 6 weeks starting this Saturday. So thank you to all of these people who have given up countless Saturdays and so many hours to make this possible for our community. And the reason we're doing this recognition is because without this, we would likely not have our students back in school to the degree that we do. So we're grateful that these people stepped up so that we could return to school.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for everyone who was here. And we will now move on. We will move on to our public comments. We do have one public comment this evening from Philip Bagley. It is actually about item 5.3, so I'm actually going to wait until we cover that item to read it, so it's fresh in our minds. Our next comment is, our next section is our Student Advisory Council, and Member Griffin met with them, I think, a few days ago, and I'll let you lead it, Shelley. Hello, Emma, and I think Emily.
Emma and Emily, and I thought Liz was going to join us, but she was hoping to join us for a specific topic. So I haven't heard from her. I don't know if anybody else has, but I hope she got the link and can join us for the later topic. We met on Sunday, and these girls have decided to join us tonight because they have some info they would like to share with the board. Emily, do you want to go first? I know you had some specific things that you wanted to talk about tonight.
Sure. Yes, I am here to begin to speak about our pursuance in regards to mental health and wellness once again. On March 20th, I was given the opportunity to attend a CASC, California Association of Student Councils conference for Region 7, which encompasses Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura counties. It was an incredibly educational experience, and I really, really enjoyed it. The conference was divided into two different sections, one that focused on diversity and equity inclusion into our curriculum and the other on mental health. And since as a council, we have been focusing on mental health recently, I did decide to attend the mental health section. And I must say that in our 7 hours together, we must have developed a list of at least 30 potential solutions to target the practically worldwide mental health problem, but especially in schools and the lack of awareness that students have of available resources. However, in the end, we had to select one to present, and our proposal included the development of a district-wide mental health task force that would focus on district-wide mental health awareness, suicide prevention materials, mental health trainings, etc. And in addition to this, each high school in each district in Region 7 would convene a wellness club, which would focus on school-wide mental health awareness. And actions may include creating colorful posters about the resources offered or the different mental health disorders, and organizing school-wide conferences with mental health professionals who may be able to further explain these resources and how to access them. And I presented this proposal to 2 board members, one from Ventura, one from Conejo, Dr. Brescia, the County Superintendent of San Luis Obispo, and to Dr. Morse. And in Sunday's SAC meeting, we discussed this proposal and we discussed its similarities to the district's current wellness guiding coalition, I believe it's called. And I really do hope that we can pursue this in the future, or at least integrate it and student input into what we currently have, as I do believe it presents many benefits for the students of Ojai Unified. And then I had a few questions about some specific agenda items, but I think I can wait until those occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And I got the news last night that Dr. Knox has brought back our Wellness Guiding Coalition, and that will be starting soon. And Dr. Knox, correct me if I'm wrong, but are there students involved in that guiding coalition, or are there places for students to be involved?
We have one student currently, but I would love to add more. And so if Emily would like to join the Wellness Coalition, I'll send you an email. And if there are a couple other students that would like to join us as well, I think that would be great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Emily. And Emma Poltney is with us tonight also, and going to talk to us about coming back on campus and what that has been like. Go ahead, Emma.
Hi, I hope you're all having a great evening. So being back on campus has been fantastic, to say the least. I've heard nothing but positive feedback from students and teachers. They're both really enjoying having just the in-person contact, and the education, I feel, has just automatically improved by just being in a classroom. There's no other distractions. And it's been really nice to just be able to sit in a classroom again. Moving forward though, we have been noticing a lot of trash on just the Nordhoff campus, just from people eating and not picking it up as it happens. But so that is something that I like to bring up. And on the same topic, lunches have been running out due to the alarmingly high number of people who have been interested in that. So it's just a point we would like to make. And it would also be helpful to have more dots in the lunch line because of the alarmingly high number of people in line, just to help with social distancing and everything, since a lot of students have noticed that there hasn't been a lot of that happening in the lunch line.
It sounded like there were a few dots, and it actually works when there are dots and then they run out. And at that point, it's kind of a jumble.
Yeah. And then there have also been rumors circulating that our 20-minute passing periods are going to change. Ideally, we'd like to keep them just as students, but if there needed to be a change, we would like to decrease the time in the first passing period by about 5 or 10 minutes and then increase the time in the second passing period.
And I don't know, I haven't heard that rumor. I'm not sure where that rumor came from, but it sounded like that 20-minute passing period was really important to students, as the impression I got when we spoke on Sunday, that having that 20 minutes breathing time and to regroup with each other was seen as pretty valuable. Is that accurate?
I would suggest that the group reach out to Mr. Munson. Remember, he had agreed to meet with you guys once a month also. So that would be a great opportunity to reach out to him, and either he'll tell you, oh, I don't know where that came from either. Or, oh, it's great to hear from you guys and get your input. Because that's one of the things he was really excited about, was to hear, to have instant student feedback.
And there was also another idea about, instead of dots on the ground, was other possible places to grab and go with the lunches. I don't know if that's at all feasible on campus or what the restrictions are, but may be useful. No?
Generally not. We serve from kind of one location.
No, it makes sense.
I was going to say, talk to Mr. Munson.
Yeah, it's definitely a campus issue that would be directed at him. I can't think of anything else that we went over, except for there are some agenda specific items that are coming up. So you're welcome to stay and join us for those items as we move on.
And as I suggested last time, you're welcome to leave, but also just turn your camera off and do homework. And then when you hear us reach the item, you can rejoin us that way. Thank you. We also now move on to our employee union comments. First, we have our CSEA President, Chuck Crawford. Hi, Chuck.
Good evening. Boy, it's such a pleasure to see this screen full of happy people during such a tough time. we appreciation is the word of the night, and just to see it, see those office managers all together like that. Dr. Morris, I want to thank you and the board for having people in mind, because that's what this whole business is about. And to see the kids back on campus reinforces that. I can mow a lot of grass, but it's so nice to see what we're doing it for. And so appreciation, the employees, the members are feeling that. I see that it's on the agenda tonight for the Classified Employee Week. I thank you for even having that conversation. The tolerance that everybody's put up with this year for the constant moving goalposts has been challenging to all of us and still is. And we have come up with an agreement. I think Dr. Morse will bring that up later in reference to the testing. The needs are being met as far as the classified. I'm not seeing any concerns that way. The technology has been a challenge for a lot of the classified employees as we keep embracing a Zoom. I think, for a custodian or a groundsman like me, give me a shovel and I'm all good, but give me a camera and it's like, what the heck? So, I mean, there's actually a thing called a Zoom stress, right? Because how often do we get to look at ourselves? And classified aren't used to doing that. We're used to getting the place to look good. So I just, with everything that's already been said tonight, I just want to reinforce the idea of appreciation. We are feeling that. And as all the principals have already spoken that this evening. And I just encourage the tolerance because I know that some emotions have been pent up, and having the bigger picture, and like the Measure J people mentioning and the Measure K, but having an architect and having a master plan, all of those things help us in going forward. And it's that simple. Appreciation and thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll move on to our OFT president, Angie Genesi. I saw her there earlier. Did she? No, did I not see her?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
You moved on my screen.
I just had to text my husband to shh in the background. It's an open house. It's just the way it works here. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you this evening. With each meeting, we inch ever closer to the end of this difficult school year. The difficult part being the pandemic and all the issues surrounding it. There are bright spots, of course, our students back at school and the sound of them on our campuses. The bus, believe it or not, is a bright spot, and how normal it looks at arriving at school, and it feels to see the kids disembarking. There is joy in all of us for all the teachers. They're all bright spots. You have before you this evening a memorandum of understanding between OFT and the district that took months of work. That was at work and was hard fought on both sides. Chuck often talks about respect in our district and how for him it's always palpable and present. I would say that with this MOU and our negotiations, that you as a board should be proud of all of the people that participated. When I think back on it, it felt a little like all of us were either Gandalf battling the Balrog or the Balrog battling Gandalf. And in the end, it felt very much like we were all the characters in the story at Aragorn's coronation. I know it's a crazy way to think about it, but respect is something that's hard won when everybody involved is exhausted beyond a usual capacity, and the ability to communicate and listen without an edge disappeared sometime in the fall. With this said, and as much as I want to not think about another thing, I must proceed. On the agenda tonight is a proposal for a purchase of another bus for our district. While OFT understands the reasoning and the need for another bus, we want to make sure that you as a board are keeping your employees and their salaries in mind when looking into any financial expenditures. The teachers of Ojai Unified continue to be the lowest paid in the county, and because of this pandemic, we lost out on a nominal cost of living increase last year. It's important for the public to understand we have to negotiate for those cost of living increases. They are not automatic. We do not want to continue to be pushed aside while the district addresses the backlog of unattended issues and concerns. Well, Dr. Morse has begun the process of attending to many of these long unattended issues and has found innovative ways to bring revenue to our district. The teachers can't wait forever and shouldn't have to. This year has taken its toll. If you approve this bus purchase, then be sure to put not only a COLA, but a salary enhancement on the table for next year's negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. We now move on to board member reports. I'll call on each board member individually to see if you'd like to speak on something this evening. Rebecca, would you like to go first?
I am okay. Thank you.
Okay. Michael?
No, nothing tonight.
Shelley? You're muted. Thank you.
I'm muted, sorry. I do actually have something I wanted to share. I'm still considering this the beginning of my new term in office. And as I've been thinking about the goals of this start to my second term, I wanted to share some thoughts that I had. I see so much progress in our district in the last 4 years, and I want to continue to make sure that we have the support that is needed to reach those goals and continue that progress. And part of my job as a board member is to advocate for our district. And my goal for the second term is to do more of that at the county and state level. To that end, on Monday night at the Ventura County School Board Association, I was elected to the executive committee, and I aim to be more involved at the county level, representing Ojai and our unique needs as a small district. I also had the opportunity this past week to sit in on the Legislative Action Day held by AXA. I don't know if many know this, but organized by our own superintendent, Dr. Morse. I was very proud of the work that Dr. Morse did on our behalf as a district, and very grateful that the needs of Ojai are being made known to our legislators. I want to commend Dr. Morse for that work, and I look forward to the continued work of advocating for our district at the county and the state level. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. I didn't realize you had done that. Congratulations, and thank you for representing us.
Congratulations, Shelley. Cool
Kevin?
thing.
Thanks.
I actually have a brief one. We had our retreat last night, and one of the things I was doing before the retreat was just sort of, taking stock. I've been on the board now for over 6 years. I will gratefully retire at the end of my term, which will have been 8 years next year. But one of the things I was looking at was just the big picture about what school boards are about. And I just wanted to read what the California School Boards Association says about the role and responsibilities of school boards. And it says, citizen oversight of local government is the cornerstone of democracy in the United States. School board members are locally elected public officials entrusted with governing a community's public schools. The role of the school board is to ensure that school districts are responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of their communities. And I wanted just to say that, it's, I'm sure, not lost on those who are really following the board closely, that lately, and particularly throughout the COVID era, I've been really advocating opening the board as much as we can, opening our processes, particularly for information, comments, perspectives, often that are from people that aren't happy sometimes, and often people that are happy. But I just like to, sort of recapitulate the idea that this is what, in my view, this is what is best about local government and organizations like school boards, is that we are open to and encourage input from everyone. And I just want to say that in the next year and a half, that is going to be one of the things I'm really focused on is increasing the amount of participation among the people in our community to give input in all ways, and encourage the school district as well as the people on the other side, the parents and students, to all be willing to open themselves to ideas that aren't necessarily consistent with their own, and do so in a way that doesn't, as Angie said, I don't know what you said long ago in the fall, speaking, to each other couldn't be done without an edge. I think it should be done without an edge. I think we should be able to say, hey, I think differently on that subject. And that's not because I'm a bad person or I'm saying you're a bad person. I just have a different view. I think, Ashley, that's one of the great things about public schools.
Thank you, Kevin. I also have a comment I wanted to make. Although there was no action taken in our closed session last night, I just wanted to comment. It was marked on the agenda as, I think it might even have said review of superintendent, but we had done our review, I think it was in February. And as a board, we wrote a letter to the superintendent. And in that letter, we told her we'd like to meet with you and express our feelings beyond in just a letter, and hear from her how she felt about our comments and how she felt about us. So I just thought I'd share just a little piece of the letter that we wrote to her, because I feel it's important for the community to know how we feel. We hope you are especially proud of how you have helped our community realize the value of public schools. We are. We feel we absolutely must compete with the private schools in the Valley, and your work is getting us there. The work you did on Measure K, especially in these difficult times, shows us the community believes in us, and that is clearly achieved to a very high degree by your hard work and your passion. Thank you for all your work and your success on grants. We recognize, appreciate, and honor the enormous number of hours you put in, the creativity you bring, your willingness to look at so many different approaches, your support for staff, technology, improvements in processes, and your obvious passion for education. We count our district extremely lucky to have you at the helm. So thank you. Just thought I'd share. I know employee reviews, but I just wanted to get out a little bit so people don't wonder, why do they keep meeting? What is that all about? And now we move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Morris? You are on. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. And I am going to find my superintendent's report so that I can share my screen. So I will start with in presenting mode. And sorry. I'm going to kind of work backwards. It's been a little while, I think 6 weeks since we've met. So I have a few things that happened that I'd like to just share. So there was so much work that went into preparing for our students to return to campus. And I want to be really thoughtful and grateful about the amount of time that our staff spent making sure our campuses were clean. And I know our elementary has been back for a while, but really Matilaha and Nordhoff, our OFT leadership, we walked every single classroom at Matilaha and Nordhoff before students came back to ensure that we were meeting all of the safety requirements. We had a team of people. We had 15 new tables at Matilaha so that we could have increased seating, and our maintenance staff was committed to other projects. So we had a team of volunteers. There's Adam there. There's Jesse from Tech. This is Kelly Stone's husband. There's me and Jason, our mechanic. We all came together and spent an afternoon putting these tables together so that they would be ready in time for students. Countless hours spent across the district making sure that our students came back to beautiful, clean campuses that were ready for them. Here's an overview of the percentage of students that have returned in person. Fluctuated a little bit, but we're pretty stable now. So you can see our elementary schools are all at 85% with the exception of San Antonio, which is at 92. And I think potentially because it's a smaller school, the numbers, the average is reflective of, or the average is skewed by just a few kids. At Matilaha and Nordhoff, we're actually pretty comparable at 73%, and at Chaparral we have 100% of students returning because they don't have a distance learning option. So they are all back in person. We have been doing some work in preparing for next year in the future. So as you know, we're always working to design for joy, and we always want feedback from our stakeholders. So we are preparing a classroom refresh demonstration, and we had furniture, that demonstration furniture, and our staff was able to watch videos, and we come and sit on the furniture and leave notes and feedback about what they liked and didn't like. And that's all going into the planning process. I think we have another meeting this Friday to work through some of the furniture selection choices based on that feedback. We are working always on our community partnerships. We had our mariachi group perform at our Secure Beginnings Diaper Bank partnership, which was great. They hadn't been able to practice in more than a year, and they kind of came together, and this was their first time in person performing. It was lovely to see. Great music here at the district office. We have ongoing free COVID testing that is for staff and for students and all of our athletes every single week. I am really excited about this. These pictures at the top are kind of our before pictures of the outdoor space at Matilaha. We didn't really have a dedicated space for the teacher's lounge outside. And one thing at Matilaha is the lounge space is very small. Some of our elementary schools, and Nordhoff has a brand new beautiful space in the library, but Matilaha has a small space where staff can't really gather. And with COVID, it was particularly more concerning. So we received some donations from some community members. So Bill and Judy Norris and Donna, who is on our OEF board, and we were able to use that to create this beautiful outdoor space at Matilaha with shade and comfortable seating, and it's just really beautiful. So we're glad to have that. We just did our video tour. Since we can't do a ribbon cutting at this time, we have a video tour of our new Nordhoff library. Look for that coming out soon, but it is really beautiful. You'll see some more pictures in the Measure J update later tonight. And this was a really special thing. Betsy Sticks, the mayor, invited us to go on a tour with Matthew Vestudo, who is a cultural specialist and consultant and really working on revitalizing the Chumash language locally. And so he took us on a tour of the watershed and some local history and culture, and we're looking forward to ways to integrate that into our studies with students. So that was really great. Today was Suki Strong Day at Matilaha. So if you're aware, Suki is a student at Matilaha who is going through some medical issues. And so the school came together today to support her as she goes through that journey. All these yellow shirts worn by staff members and students. It was really great. And then today, as I mentioned, was our Administrative Professional Day celebration. So we had great food, time together. This was held in the new Matilaha cafeteria and was a beautiful space to hold that. We had our English Learner Advisory Council, our ELAC meeting, and this is being led by Alex Mejia, and we're grateful for her work on this, and Chris Murphy. And so they met to work on some of our English learner projects and goals, including reclassifying students who are able to move up to the next level or move out of English learner services. It was great to have them in person again for the first time in over a year. We continue to give away bikes to students and families for our to use for transportation, particularly during COVID and as part of our overall focus on wellness. And we have our A Place at the Table events are continuing, and this month, actually next week, we are excited for Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and we have a couple of really great speakers who will be sharing with our community some of the past and present struggles in the Asian American community. And just a few other pieces of news. Our pool committee held its first meeting this month, and we're continuing to work towards some conceptual designs of the pool and identifying what our needs are for both serving the community and Nordhoff. The library at Miners Oaks Elementary School the committee to move the library in Miners Oaks to the elementary school had our first design meeting last week. We are still working on the Nordhoff master plan, which includes both the pool and an overall master plan for the facility. And then we're working on planning for next school year. So we are committed to a full return, 5 days a week, all day for students. At this point, that seems like that will be possible due to declining COVID rates and increased vaccinations. We want to make sure that we have an option for those who wish to remain on distance learning. The process of determining the schedule for next year is underway, and in our contract with OFT, we have a specific article that describes the process for determining those schedules, so that is being worked on. And then finally, Nordhoff and Matilaha have both or are both establishing principals councils, and that has on-site stakeholders, teachers, and classified staff who are working on some overall ideas for next year, including intervention plans for learning loss mitigation. So that is all the work that is happening in those areas. Now for our standing ovations. So we have district office standing ovations for me, the school principals and assistant principals, our amazing nutrition services team, and the whole Ojai Unified staff. Miners Oaks, we have Jennifer Chrisman, who is doing nutritional services and instructional assistant. Hayden, our custodian, Francis, our custodian, Maribel, our school support secretary, and Darian O'Brien, who's a reading intervention aide. So lots and lots of people at Miners Oaks who are helping to make sure that our students have all of the support they need when they're on campus. We have a nomination for Robin Munson, our principal, nominated by Brenda Hill. And I actually think this might, this is this is great. So Robin is also the principal of San Antonio, nominated by Brenda Hill, who's a teacher at Summit. And then another one for Natasha Efros, who's a teacher at Summit School. We have Topa Topa Elementary. We have a lot of teachers. So Tracy Oakland with 3, which is great. Jennifer Hankins, Amy Bujold, and Don Damianos for all of their great work. Nordhoff, Todd Robinson, and Gabby Taylor, and just in general, the Nordhoff staff, student parent volunteers. And I'll read that one to you in just a moment. So I am so beyond grateful for Nordhoff and all the parents that put so much work into homecoming and making some normalcy out of very difficult and trying times. I saw an awesome group of students, teachers, school district officials, and let's not forget those rock star parents that are always there volunteering their own time. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of the Ojai Valley School District and parents for their hard work for our children. Here are all the people that were volunteering to make homecoming possible for our students this year.
And then just at the bottom here, back to school. Good job, Ojai Unified School District. Thank you, teachers, administrators, and volunteers. One big step forward. And that concludes my superintendent report.
Thank you. Our next item is summer school programming.
Let me reshare my screen. I guess I could have kept that up, huh? So just a quick overview. This is our second year of this new to Ojai way of doing summer programming. We have a partnership with a charter management organization, Learn for Life. They help us with funding of the summer school and allow us to offer many, many innovative programs and classes. It is
for free.
For free, right. For free to us and for free to parents. It's a lot of work to put this program together, but we're really excited. This year is bigger and better than last year, and we're looking forward to providing extended opportunities for our students. So just a quick overview, camps and classes will run July 6th through July 29th. They are held at Miramani for elementary, Matilaha and Nora for our secondary students, and we'll have some credit recovery available at Chaparral as well. Most of our camps are 3 hours. This year, something that we've been able to do at elementary is add an extended day option to support families. So if you come to summer school in the morning from like 8 to noon, you still have to provide childcare in the afternoon. So we are opening up a childcare option for our families. And for our families that qualify for free or reduced lunch, we are able to subsidize that. So it's at no cost to them. Our Fridays are asynchronous, meaning that students come in person Monday through Thursday if it's an in-person class. And Fridays they work independently so that we can still allow families to take vacations or to do other things if they need to during that month of July. All of our camps and classes, with the exception of special education, are operated at no cost to the district. So we still contribute to special education generally, because it has some different requirements. And I just want to share some of, not all of, but some of our classes. And give me just a second. I have to, there we go. So here is our catalog that we have, and we worked really hard on providing classes that we think will be very fun for students, but also to help with some of the potential learning that wasn't able to happen this school year. So we have a transitional.
Sorry,
You can't,
I don't know if everybody else
can't see. Oh,
only see a little bit of your form. Yeah.
I can see it. Let me try again. Can you see the whole thing?
Yes.
Thank you. It's weird. So we have Transitional Kindergarten Readiness Program, which is new this year. We're really excited about that. So for our little ones who want to get ready for kindergarten, we have an opportunity for that. We have kindergarten readiness, and then we have at elementary, instead of having separate classes, we actually have a really innovative and new program called SOAR. And thank you to Catherine White for putting this together, which is STEM, outdoor education, arts, and reading. And students will go from activity to activity or class to class, and they'll get an experience in all of those. So we're very excited and working to try and bring the reading to pets program so that we can see if we can make that happen. But I'm excited about that. And then our extended day program. And even for the families that would potentially be paying for it, we try to make it as affordable as possible. And so it's $150 for the entire month, which if you have paid for childcare is very inexpensive. And then
Can I ask a quick question on you mentioned that if families were traveling during the month of July, they could still sign up. Is that correct?
The Fridays are asynchronous. So if you're gone for an entire week, that wouldn't work. But if you are planning a camping trip, you could potentially do your asynchronous work on Friday remotely.
Great, thank you.
So our middle and high school camps, I won't read all of these, but some really engaging ones where they're trying to focus on our 4 core district values. So we have wellness, so we have some athletics, we have arts and music, so we have drumline and dance, we have STEM for, and also outdoor education. And so we are trying to provide as many opportunities as we can for students. We have Esports, which is a continuation of our club that we started this year. We have a lot of computer tech classes, which we don't offer as much during the year, and it's someplace where we would like to grow, but we were able to add these in the summer. So excited about game design and web development. And then we also have, I'm super excited about our culinary arts camp. And if you notice in here, we also have classes that are designed to help students who may want to beef up on some of their skills before they transition to the next grade. So we have Ready Ranger for incoming 9th graders. And back here we have Summer Scholars for our middle school students. So if if they want to do some skill development in a fun and more personalized environment, we have that opportunity. And then finally, we have our high school acceleration classes for students who might want to take some of these classes and open up a free period next year in their schedule. And so those are our summer programs.
Tiffany, do we have the teachers already lined up for each of those? I didn't see any references to the teachers.
Yeah, we do have the teachers lined up, but we don't put their names in the catalog in case it changes. But yes, we have almost all of our teachers and staff are set. We have already in elementary, I think 150 students signed up in elementary. And we'll be doing more promotion over the next few weeks.
Emma and Emily, did you guys have some questions about this item?
Yes, we discussed summer school on Sunday, and I know that students will be very grateful for the wide variety of courses this summer. And I realize that Nordhoff offers primarily history and Spanish classes for acceleration, but would students be able to take other courses such as math specifically for acceleration during the summer, or is it limited to history and Spanish?
It's generally limited, although if you have a specific ask, you can certainly talk to your counselor, and it may be that we can make that accommodation, but in general, we prefer that you take your core classes because summer school is really 19 days. And so we want to make sure that you have enough support to get through your section. So math and English, generally core classes are taken during the school year.
Thank you.
Emma, did you have any questions?
I did not.
I see Elizabeth is here too. Elizabeth, did you want to comment on the summer school programming?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your hair looks great.
Thank you.
I just want to say, wow. I'm so excited that we have summer school in the first place. And oh, and I'm going out of turn, Jane. We talked about you were gonna call on us each individually.
No, go ahead, since you started.
But to have these opportunities for kids to really play and learn during the summer is such a gift to the Valley. I'm very, very grateful for all the efforts that went into this. And I also have to say, wow, to the after school, $150 for after school care is, you can't beat it. Like, I'm so impressed with that. So to all those who have worked so hard at this endeavor, I'm very grateful and thank you.
Is there any other board member that would like to comment on this? Michael?
Yeah, I'm just picking my classes now. Don't bother me. I'm actually looking at all of the things that I want to do. No, this looks like really fun. This is, summer is a very cool time, right? You don't want to like burden kids with just stuff. So it looks like even the sort of like the real school things like STEM look fun. And so I just think this is great. This just, I just want to do all these.
Yeah. Culinary camp. I'm interested in culinary camp for sure.
I am thrilled with culinary camp, and my daughter is too, and signed up. And so I'm looking forward to having dinners cooked for me all summer long. It's a win-win all the way around.
Tiffany, do we know who maybe our culinary camp teacher?
Yeah, Nick Muller.
Ah, I love Nick. I was hoping it was Nick.
Yeah. I have been slowly recruiting teachers. So I used to run this program in my old job, and I've been slowly recruiting teachers who used to do this in my old position. So I think we have at least 3 teachers that used to work for me in my old job that I email and say, hey, what are you doing this summer? Come do this in Ojai. And so we're grateful that Nick and Joe Chacon is our game design teacher, who's really amazing designer, actually designed our logo for the district. And so, yeah, we're getting some great talent for our summer programs.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like almost a junior college quality presentation. Also just love the presentation. I think it's appealing, really appealing.
Rebecca?
I would love to say that I know putting together these courses in the catalog on top of all of our traditional work, on top of COVID, on top of reopening schools is incredible that we have that all together already. And my hat's off to staff who helped that happen. So thank you so much. And I'm sure it'll be a great benefit to our students.
Great. I think, are we finished then with the summer school presentation?
Yeah, I would just add one more thing, and that's that credit recovery isn't in the catalog because credit recovery is not so much an optional, it's not as optional as these. And so for our students who potentially might need to make up some credits due to grades this year, it's a little bit of a different process, but we still have our traditional credit recovery and our special education classes. They're just not in this fun flipping catalog, but those happen as well.
Thank you. Moving on to 5.2, COVID-related funding overview.
So I will share my screen again. So this is a little bit of a work in progress, but I wanted to give the board an update of where we are with COVID funding. You've seen this slide before. This is our prior allocation, really everything that we've received this year and that we have spent this year. And there was a pie chart that went with this at the last board meeting, which I think didn't make it into this presentation. That was my fault. But what I'd really like to focus on is our new allocations of COVID money and what we're doing in the process of figuring out what to do with that money. So we have many pots of COVID money, and they all have a little bit different timeline and a little bit different rules. And so it's quite complicated to make all of these come together. And also they all have their own reporting requirements. So it's great to get additional funding. It also comes with lots and lots of additional work on the back end. As I'm sure Rebecca is aware, it seems like every other day there's a new COVID report that's due. But in general, moving forward, so we have ESSER 2, and ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This is federal. So this was ESSER 1, and then we received ESSER 2, which was passed during the tail end of the last presidential administration, and we have ESSER 3, which was passed at the very beginning of this presidential administration. We have GEAR 2, which is state money, and that's the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. We also have expanded learning opportunities. So this is optional money that districts can apply for if they would like to expand learning opportunities. So summer programming, to have extend the school year, things like that. We have in-person instruction grants that are available in varying amounts based on when school districts return to campus, and we returned on April 1st, just actually prior to that. So we're eligible for this entire amount.
And another thing that's out there that we're working on is it appears like school districts can apply for Fema reimbursement, but there's a lot of details around that that's still being worked on, but that is another potential pot of money. And that would be for money that we've already spent that wasn't covered in these pots of money. So here's a little calendar of the timeline. And I just share this because we want to be really thoughtful about what funds we use when and where we categorize our expenses. So you can see that between now and summer of 2021 and the next school year, we have $1.5 million that has to be spent by June, so by the end of next school year. We have another $0.7 million that would be spent, that has to be spent by the end of summer, or basically when school starts. And then another $5 million that would be spent by September 30th. So just a little bit into the 22-23 school year. And basically what that means is, you know, if we were doing things like adding days or adding professional development days, that, you know, those would come at, you know, in August, for example, of 22-23. So we can spend these funds on that. And then just a tiny little bit, about $150,000 that goes all the way through this 22-23 school year till September of the following year, but not a significant amount. So lots of moving pieces in terms of what we spend when. So these are some of the possible COVID-related expenditures. We have been talking to our staff. We've been meeting in teams to discuss what we might need in order to really serve our students with this funding next year. And so some of these things, so potentially additional elementary teachers so that we can lower class sizes next year so that we could meet social distancing requirements, additional hours for our custodians to continue to do the great work that they've been doing, keeping our schools sanitized, clean, and safe. Maybe additional days of teacher professional development to do training for some of the new intervention programs that we may have in place next year, additional instructional aids and hours, potentially summer school. As you saw, our summer school is generally funded through a partnership, but there are some special education pieces of summer school that are traditionally funded by the district, but we may be able to utilize COVID funding to make sure that we have that in place and support that. After school extension programming, we're excited next year to be able to offer some of these similar types of programs that we have in summer school, potentially after school next year for students to have some extended learning there. Potentially a program specialist to help us with some of the additional special education services that we will be working on next year based on this year. Potentially still having additional tech support next year, really working with our English learners and our homeless students next year. We will definitely need additional supplies, potentially extending our library hours in all of our campuses so that we students would have access to the library as a place after school. Really working on our mental health services, and thank you to Emily for, Emily had some great ideas about that. And I think actually, Emily, we reached out to you. Maybe Ms. Cole-Michaels reached out to you because we're starting a new mental health pathway, but we definitely want your feedback as we plan for this mental health programming next year. Additional Chromebooks and software that we continue to need. This is multiple years, so looking at the 21, 22 and future year, additional teacher PD days. We may be able to offset some of our furniture that we need to buy so that we can meet the social distancing requirements. We didn't want to just purchase that furniture without getting feedback from teachers because it's a really special thing to be able to order new feedback. So you saw we had that process of teachers and staff giving feedback, and now that we have that, we'd like to order some furniture for next year so that we can have some more flexibility in terms of our spacing.
I would like to point out that that's important in terms of COVID, because there's a lot of desks, for example, that are double desks. So they're, it's one piece of furniture, but two students are supposed to sit at that. So obviously in COVID, that's difficult. And if we can purchase desks with COVID funding that would separate students, that makes sense.
Right now, many of our elementary classrooms are using high school desks because we took out the double desks to meet social distancing requirements. And so we definitely need desks in order to accommodate this in the future. So it was a trade-off between getting feedback and input from teachers and getting something available. And so for next year, we want to be able to have our classrooms really set up to provide that distancing. Air conditioning, we have some classrooms where we can definitely improve the ventilation. So like here at Chaparral, some of our classrooms have wall units, for example, and we'd like to improve that ventilation for next school year. We are really struggling with our transportation this year to get all of our students on our buses, given the social distancing requirements. And so potentially having additional tools for transportation. Maybe some summer school next year, having some of those special education costs for summer school again, and really looking at intervention, which is how we can help our students who maybe didn't meet all of their learning targets this year. So having a really robust program, elementary, and this should say secondary. So at Matilaha, Nordhoff, and Chaparral, having really good intervention and then also training for that intervention. So these are some of the ideas that we are talking about. Our next steps, we are working on cost estimates for the proposed items, as well as other considerations like the availability of staffing. We can set aside money for aides, but we still have to find them and make sure that they want to be here. And as you heard me say before, we're kind of out of bodies, but we're looking forward to recruiting additional people to work next year. We do have to put together an extended learning opportunities grant plan, which is the condition of that funding. And so that would be coming back to you by June 1st. And then you'll also see this again when we bring the budget to you in June. So that is the current work that we're doing with COVID funding.
I'm gonna just check with each board member to see if there's any questions or comments. Kevin?
Yeah, just to the extent that this could be an advertisement for aides, what are the qualifications that are required?
I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know, Cheryl?
There's no like basic academic requirement as far as having any tests passed or college education level. The only thing that you'd have to do is go through our HR screening.
And then we would train you in the particular program that you would be working with.
Exactly.
Special education aides do have to have some other things. I think, do we do NCPI training for special education aides? Yeah. So it kind of depends on the program, but if you're a RAFT aide, a reading aide, you would go through a RAFT training.
Michael?
It's a lot of money, and it's going to be, I think, a lot of work to spend it. I'm sure that you'll be up to the task. This all looks important, and I like the idea of some additional teachers. So.
Rebecca? I'm sorry, you're chewing. I'll do Shelley first. Shelley?
Okay.
I just want to say, in thinking about the furnishings for elementary going forward and knowing that we have this money to do what is needed for safety for the students, but also that we will have that furniture for the long term after this. I'm very grateful for the thought process that went behind that and asking for input from teachers and understanding what's really going to work so that we don't end up with things that may serve us well in COVID, but that we regret a couple years down the line. So I'm grateful that you slowed it down and looked at getting all that input. I think that's really crucial. So thank you.
Rebecca?
Just more curious about the process for the extended learning grant. Are you putting together like a team of stakeholders to help rate that?
Yeah, so it's going to start with Cheryl, myself, and Marilyn. I think we're trying to schedule a meeting for next week. We have some ideas and we've done some work. And then once we have a general idea and a plan to share, then we will share it out with stakeholder groups. And some of the pieces may need to be negotiated. So we have consultation with our OFT scheduled for later this month, so we can start the process of some of those pieces that, so for example, we can't just add professional development days. That's a conversation that we have with our union partners and also CSEA if it's classified. And so definitely lots of stakeholder feedback through that process.
Great, that's all I had.
I don't have any questions. I'm assuming our students will turn on their cameras if they have a question. So we will move on to 5.3, which is our state testing update. I do have a public comment on this one. It is from Philip Bagley. It says, I encourage the board to require that SBAC be given to all applicable grades this spring in order to obtain accurate, comparable information about what students are learning. Use of alternate assessments would prevent us from identifying and tracking our progress as a district year over year as intended. The stated distinction that students in 6th through 8th grade have a greater need to adjust to in-person school does not meet the viability test. All students have the option of in-person instruction. The large majority have returned to campus already, and the district has provided technology to all students in order to allow the test to be taken remotely. The SBAC can be administered safely. Per the U.S. Department of Education's guidance on this topic, viability does not provide an opportunity for states of school districts to choose, I think it means, or school districts, to choose to administer local assessments in place of the statewide summative assessment. Electing to use an alternative assessment based on the reasons provided in the district's current thinking slide for this item is insufficient and contrary to federal and state guidance. There is no good reason to choose an alternate assessment for any grades in the district. Please require that the SBAC be administered to all grades. Thanks. And we'll be sharing a slide on this, or
Tiffany, you'll pull that up, right?
Yes, I am working on that.
Dr. Knox,
if you want to start.
Yeah, I'll start. To start, we've been waiting all year to learn whether or not we were going to be able to have other options besides giving the annual tests that fall under CASP. And so a lot of the information that we've received along throughout the year is that we were going to have to offer them. And it's really been in the last month that we've heard a lot of new information about the ability to have a waiver, what that waiver, what the opt-out really means. And so a lot of the information that we're sharing with you is hot off the press. The FAQ on the CDE website is updated on a regular basis. And so I'm looking at it daily, kind of saying, like, what are districts choosing? What are the options here? I can tell you that I was in a meeting with assistant superintendents across the county last Thursday, and all of us are in this very, very difficult situation of trying to figure out what the right decision is as far as what we should offer our students. Just to remind everybody, CASP, which is the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, has several tests that fall underneath it. We have the LPAC, which we give to our English learners. The SBAC is the more traditional test that you think of, where we give the math and English test every year to 3rd through 8th graders as well as 11th graders. The CAST is the science test, which is given in 5th, 8th grade, and then also usually the last year that you have science in high school, which for us is mostly our juniors. And then the alternative assessment for our students with pretty significant cognitive needs. I'll just give you an update that we've been giving the LPAC all year. We were able to give the initial assessments in the fall and have been working on the annual assessments in the last months. We've been very lucky to have most of our English learners in person, so we've been able to give those tests to them. And the ones that weren't on campus that were still distance learning, we were able to make appointments and bring them on to campuses. So we've been able to successfully test everybody in person. Although we do have the option of testing remotely this spring. So in all of these tests, with the exception of the CAW, there's an ability to allow a student to test remotely while our test administrator is observing them through video. So, but we haven't had to do that yet, at least with the LPAC, which is the only test that we've given so far. So I'll just back up a little bit, and yeah, you can go to the next slide. You know, one of the things about CASP testing, or the idea of testing, is obviously we want really valuable data as to where our students are, right? How they're progressing. That's the whole idea of these tests. And as you all know, last year in 1920, because of COVID, we did not test. So we do not have testing data for the SBAC as of last school year. This school year, some of the things that we want to take into consideration or just realize is that the accountability model is going to be slightly different for next year. So you might remember that on the dashboard, we have gauges and there's colors. And so everybody wants to be in the blue and the green, and you know, the orange and the red are bad. But you might remember that there's two ways to get your color. And one is status, which is your sort of actual scores, and then your change, right? So if you move up in scores for academic scores, that helps you get a better color. Or if you move down, then that kind of usually makes your color a little bit worse. And so for next year, what we're learning, and again, we're just learning all this information in the last weeks and month, what the state is planning to do is to not account for change. So essentially, should we choose to use the SBAC this year for our students, it will act as a baseline for future years, right? And be the thing that we use as we look at change and progress for the future. So that's, you know, good to know. And obviously they would have to do something like that since we don't have test scores from last year. We'd be looking at test scores from 2 years out. But I thought that was worth mentioning. So when it comes to testing, you can stay on that slide. When it comes to testing, we're not off the hook. We do have to test. The state is saying, the federal government is saying to the state, you do have to test. But we can take into consideration, you know, the situation with COVID and consider choosing alternative tests. And one of the things that is really part of our discussion today and the decision-making process is this concept of if it's viable. Basically, the federal government is saying if it's viable, you should give the SBAC. But if it's not, or the other tests as well that fall under CASP, but if it's not, that we could take that into consideration and choose alternative assessments. Obviously, some of the factors that are going into whether or not it's viable have to do with whether or not we have, you know, good technology, our students have access to internet. We're very lucky because at this point, currently, we have most of our students, I think we saw the percentages earlier, somewhere to 80 to 85% of our students are on campus. So we have access to a lot of our students, and really, we in most cases have the ability to test the rest remotely if need be, but also we have good partnership with our families, just like we saw in the LPAC, where probably we could make individual appointments and bring kids onto campus if we wanted to give them the SBAC. However, one of the discussion pieces in this sort of idea of viable, and it's part of the FAQ on the CD website, is this concept of the fact that we can take into consideration, and we should take into consideration, the amount of time our schools have been open and our students have been in person, and the amount of time we're dedicating to just addressing trauma and social and emotional needs of our students and getting our students back on campus. And so for us, you know, elementary has been on campus much more frequently this year than our secondaries. Our secondaries just started in the last couple of weeks. I think They might end up with roughly 50 some days of in-person instruction, and certainly they're still transitioning back to their campuses. I would say that this is especially important to consider with Matoaha, where you have sixth graders who are brand new to middle school, and this is their first time coming onto campus and adjusting. You have the seventh graders who were the first sixth graders to transition to the middle school, but have never spent an entire year on that campus. And then of course the eighth graders. And then we can consider Nordhoff. Obviously, that group of students is basically our juniors that we would be testing. I would say they have much more.
Cheryl, I'm sorry. Let me also throw in that our eighth graders have also only had a half a year on campus because they came in as seventh graders.
That's a great point. Yeah. So just things to take into consideration. Nordhoff is just our junior class that we have to assess when it comes to the math and English language arts. And so anyway, I just wanted to sort of point all those factors out as we discuss our potential options. So I already mentioned that the test can be given in person or remotely. That's helpful as far as being able to give every one of our students the test potentially. Obviously, we want to consider things like internet. We feel very comfortable that we have all those things in place. We can make different decisions based on grade level, but whatever we choose for an entire grade level, we have to do that across the board, with the exception of the CAW. So we can choose to give an assessment across the board by grade level, but still let the students who have more significant cognitive needs, as indicated by their IEP, to go ahead and take the CAW in that same grade level. And then of course, again, like I said, we're not off the hook. We still have to give some other assessment if we choose not to give the SBAC. And so we would want to consider what that alternative assessment could be, and realize that we still have to publicly share the data and have it disaggregated by student subgroups, which is not always easy depending on how the data is given to us. So this is just sort of our current thinking. We do believe that third through fifth grade, having been on campus mostly since November, that they're in a place that it is probably viable for us to give the SBAC. Sixth through eighth grade, with some of the factors that I mentioned before of them not being super familiar with their campus, at least the majority, and just still dealing with the adjustments of being back on campus, we are considering giving an alternate assessment. We actually have already given it, which is excellent. So it's the IXL assessment, which is Common Core aligned. So that's what we're thinking we could use. And then in my county meetings, some of the districts are throwing around the idea of potentially using the SAT in place of the SBAC. So that's a potential option for our juniors. One of the things we want to consider with our juniors is that there's a EAP, I'm blanking on what it stands for now, but it's an assessment equivalent for, the SBAC can be an assessment equivalent for colleges to be able to identify if students are actually college ready or college level ready to enter math and English at the college level, or whether or not they have to do some remedial work prior to moving to a four-year college. And so we'd want to take that into consideration, that some students might want to use the SBAC for that, although the SAT potentially could probably be an indicator for colleges as well as to whether or not the students are college ready for math and English placement. The SAT does have a cost, which is something that we'd want to consider, although it's not astronomical by any means. And, I think the big difference there when we consider, the amount of in-person time our students have had and the amount of in-person time testing takes, the SBAC usually is at least a 3-day disruption to a campus, where the SAT would be a 1-day disruption to the campus. So anyway, that's generally my overview. So I'd love commentary and thoughts.
Shelley, any thoughts?
I have a couple of questions. So you said that the SAT has costs with it, but does the SBAC also have costs? No.
No.
That's given to us. Okay. And I saw in one of your previous slides, the CAST. I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding. So it sounds like we can give one of these tests, not all of them. Is that?
We have to give a math and English test for sure. So that can be the SBAC or it can be an alternative exam. What the state has determined is that there is no alternative in existence for a science test that's equivalent to the CAST or the CAW, which means we either just don't give them or we give them, and then really our biggest consideration is the SBAC, whether or not we want to use an alternative for the math and language arts.
So and my question was about the CAST and whether our 11th graders who didn't take it last year and are now 12th graders would be required to go back and take it.
The state is advising us to give the science test to the juniors and seniors who didn't take it last year, should we choose to give it.
Even though they may have not had a science class in this whole.
Correct, because it's just meant to be taken at the end of your science career in high school. So because they had science as freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, it's a science overview of high school science curriculum.
So even if we give the SBAC or the SAT, some of our juniors and seniors, so half our high school kids are also going to be taking a CAST. Is that?
Unless we choose not to give it. But again, there's no alternative for it. So we can choose not to give it.
So that would add an extra day to SBAC testing. So in theory, it could be 4 days for some of our students.
Potentially, I think right now they have their schedule in previous years. I think that they're able to give both the SBAC and the CAST in a 3-day time period.
Okay.
And for the seniors, it would probably be 1 day just for the science.
I'd like to also just point out that for the SBAC in English Language Arts and Math, on this slide, we talked about how we've already given IXL. So IXL is our program for that we use for math, but we gave this before students returned to campus, so approximately a month ago, so that we could see where students were in terms of their academic progression and where we would need to focus for the rest of the school year. So part of the goal of this data is that we can use it to address learning loss. We already gave the IXL and we're using it currently to address learning loss, including intervention programs for students in English Language Arts and Math at Matilaha. So I just wanted to share that we, it's not that we're not interested in data, it's that we have data and we're utilizing it already. And so we really want to consider for our students who just took this, do we want them to take something again that gives us data that we use when we have data that we're already using, right? So what's the overall goal?
And so my first thought is always the students, and dedicating 3 days to testing when we may not need to, and they have missed so much school, and schooling is, I'd way rather see them in a classroom. That's my first thought, is that seems excessive. But my question is, how if we then do SBAC next year, how do we compare apples to oranges? Or we will be anyway, because it's a COVID year and we're comparing apples to oranges anyway. This year is going to be an orange year no matter what.
The other thing, Shelley, about that, just before you move on to address that point, is in regular years, you have a threshold requirement of 95% or else you get penalized. This year, you don't have to have that 95%. So even, yes, it's a COVID year, so it's apples and oranges. Also, the numbers, the reason that you have that 95% threshold is so that you're sure that you have a broad representation. There is no guarantee that we would get 95, considering that, our students, we still have students on distance learning who may or may not take it, may or may not be at home, there's all kinds of factors that go into that. So with what we could only anticipate would be a lower participation rate, that also makes it hard to compare across years.
So really the huge benefit to these testing is to get input on where the learning mitigation is at this point. And I'll tell you my concerns about the SAT. On the flip side, you know, that it's one day is great, but it's the SAT, which I find problematic. The cost of it, it's been shown to be skewed and not inclusive of all students. And it's a whole different scoring system for students. It's a very different kind of test that I don't know that students are prepared to take at the high school level, but maybe a great opportunity for kids who may not take the SAT to try it and see what that looks like and get them to be inspired to take it. So I can see a lot of pros and cons on all sides, and I'll leave it there for now and let others speak.
Rebecca?
Yes, I agree with Shelley that, well, to me, to spend multiple days on testing with very few days that we have left in the classroom and very few days overall this year is, to me, doesn't seem like a great use of time. The one test that I would be interested in is the SAT, if we could offer it at no cost to students. Because when I worked in another district, they offered the SAT for free and had multiple students taking it that wouldn't have, and then their chances of going on to college were greatly increased after having taken it just because they were required to take it. So there's a benefit to that. The other thing I want to say is thank you to Dr. Knox. This week I was in a meeting with the former county assistant superintendent, Dr. Castro, and he spoke so highly of you and your implementation of multiple curriculums in Ojai and just how much progress you have made. So I know that with your great skills that we will come to a good solution. And I was really proud and really appreciate the work that you have done. And I would say I'm not a huge fan of standardized testing, especially in a year like this where there's so many variables that we cannot, rest our hat on. We haven't had our kids in our classes. It's really going to come up with skewed data either way. But if anything, if we could take the opportunity to give kids a chance to take the SAT to say, oh, I'm a kid that maybe could go to college and I don't even realize how much I already know, that could be a huge benefit to our students. So it's my opinion.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place about taking away the precious few remaining in classroom days we have of the rest of the year. I don't think standardized, you got to measure something, and standardized testing help that, but it should really only be one input into a full equation. And I do have reservations about the SAT, and I know, in terms of graduation and moving on, but an increasing number of institutions are not using it, and so I just wonder at the value, and SBAC is what we use. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. I don't have enough to say what I think we should be doing, but those are my concerns.
Kevin?
Sorry, I was looking at the slide. I have 6 of 6 up, which is the one with the current thinking. So according to this slide, 6 of 6, current thinking, 3 to 3rd and through 5th grade give the SBAC and CAS, the science test, for 5th grade only. I would agree with that. As to 6 through 8, it says not in the best interest of students to give SBAC or CAS given the greater need for them to adjust to in-person school. and then talks about the IXL as an alternative. First, one of the things, of course, about the SBAC is that all the parents and families get the results directly in the mail, from the SBAC. Do we provide the families with the results of the IXL evaluations?
We haven't as of yet. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any kind of specialized printout as to if there's something to hand parents, but I assume that there probably is something in the system that we can hand to parents. I think it's valuable for parents to see how their students are doing. Yeah,
so my overall feeling is that this is kind of a warts and all moment, where we need to know where our kids are. And so I would actually think it's a fairly important and useful process to go through to evaluate, where the kids are after this very unusual period of distant learning. So, I would feel like we would want to do some robust evaluation in the 6 through 8 range as well. And then as to the SBAC or the SAT, given the concerns about the SAT, I would suggest the SBAC in 11th grade. And again, it's a reflection of, I believe SBAC is more of a reflection of what we're very distinctly trying to teach, as opposed to the SAT, to which we're not really teaching. SBAC, I think, unless you tell me differently, is probably a better reflection of how well we're doing with respect to the kids, being educated in the areas in which we're trying to educate them.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. There's, the SAT realigned their test to be Common Core aligned, but certainly they are not, it wasn't created for the same purpose of SBAC, which SBAC was specifically created to check on the standards and to provide valuable feedback to not only the student and the family, but the educators as to how well they're doing as far as teaching the standards.
Emily?
Yes, regardless of the standardized testing that the district chooses, going forward, would primarily Nordoff be able to offer a free test preparation course, especially for the SAT, as that is such a foreign subject to so many students?
I don't think we've taken that into consideration. I don't know if Dr. Morse wants to speak to that more, but certainly something we can consider.
It might be a great summer school class.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody that could teach it. I actually going to agree with Kevin and our public comment. I really feel that that's the test we've taken and given, and I think getting, we know there'll be changes, but again, we're not comparing it to last year. We're comparing it to 2 years ago, which when you look at cohorts really changes, right? I mean, you're talking about a 3rd grader who's now a 5th grader and had a year and a half of COVID possible distance learning. So we're bound to see some different numbers, but we know what those numbers mean. And community members know what it means. My concern would be the missed days in classes. If we, they're only going to be in person. So if we were to go with the SBAC, I would like us to look at possibilities of, maybe distance learners in the morning take it, and in-person students take it in the afternoon, and there's no homework assignments on those days. So they actually still go to class every day in their normal time frame, but use the afternoon for testing. Because that's my big concern. I really, if you've only got 50 days with your teacher, I'd hate to lose 3 of them to a test, but I think the SBAC is our best option for knowing what we're testing and knowing what the results mean.
Can I just ask one more question? Are teachers in Ojai regularly using SBAC scores to evaluate student placement? Like for the following year, would you as a teacher use the SBAC scores to meet learning needs? Because I haven't seen that done.
No, I mean, we're not using the annual SBAC score for immediate interventions the following year, primarily because, especially in 3rd through 8th grade, we've sorry, I'm distracted. So what we've done is we've aligned in 3rd through 8th grade assessments that we give throughout the year that are very strategically aligned and built to mirror SBAC. So we use that data to intervene on a regular basis throughout the year.
So those tests are still being done without the SBAC being done? Those
were used throughout this year to assess
so
kids
we
and to
have
look at
those
data.
scores in place without, like, to use to measure learning loss for students, for teachers to be able to place students and do intervention.
We do have access to scores.
So doing the SBAC would really just be a duplication to inform parents?
It would be comprehensive data, because the way we have our benchmark, they're broken out by strands. So they're all individualized in strands. In order to have a comprehensive score that we could then share with our parents and also our community, we would need to give the either the SBAC or the interim, which if you're going to give the interim at this point, you might as well give the SBAC in its entirety, so that we have the comprehensive score to share with the community.
Okay. If it's not a huge, like, if teachers already have a way to measure learning loss, then to me, that's where the value lies, because that's how we can put them in the right courses to make up those differences or those losses. But taking 3 days of precious class time to do that just doesn't seem logical to me.
But there is the state and federal requirements, so it's not just that. And my understanding, Cheryl, when we talked about it in the past, was that these sort of tests as we go along were really sort of mini SBACs, and that they were actually provided to us by that testing company, no?
Those are available, but then we've also created our own that mirror them. And I should clarify, because we actually have them completely built out in math, but not completely built out in language arts. The difficulty there is they're broken out by strand, though. So you'd have to take the compilation of all the different strands that you assess throughout the year to come up with some sort of comprehensive score. So I think they're great for providing intervention and understanding where learning loss is for some of the individualized strands. But I do think we would need to give some other test. However, I do think IXL, at least in 6th through 8th grade, is sufficient. I mean, it does give a comprehensive score that is aligned to Common Core that we can utilize not only to report out and to disaggregate our subgroups to our community, but also to use for intervention.
Can you see my screen now?
It's pretty tiny.
It is tiny because it's a weird. So I just want to show you, because you may not have seen this. This is just a sample of what we would get from IXL. So we have this on all of our middle school students. And so you get an overall math levels score. And then we get particular by strand, like where are you in numbers and operations? You're at 490. We really need to work on your fraction skills. So we have this for both English language arts and math currently, and it's pretty robust. So I realize now that we said IXL, but we didn't show you what that means and how we're utilizing that. So we have data broken down at Matilaha for all students who took this, and we have highlights in the areas where where we see some gaps in learning, and that those students who are not meeting standards in both English language arts and mathematics are in intervention that's targeting their specific areas where they need growth. So that's what our IXL looks like. And I am almost 100% sure that we can provide this kind of report. To Kevin's point, I think this would be very useful for parents. And so I think we can see if that's a possibility that we can share out.
And then how comfortable are you, or how confident are you that you can sort of defend a viability? Because to me, that seems like the crux. I mean, it seems to me like we have students on campus. We could viably give the test, so why wouldn't we?
I think that goes to Cheryl's earlier point about one of the components of viability is about being in the student's best interest. And so I think with, 42 days left of school, or 39 or whatever it is, missing 3 days, and that we already have this robust data set. And I'm really just talking about middle school for right now. We're committed in elementary, high school. The SAT isn't a great option, but we wanted to put it out there for discussion. But in middle school, because we have this robust data, because we spent so much time and effort having students take this IXL test that we're currently utilizing, it's hard to say now turn around, take a test so that we can get the same data that we already have and use some of your days. So it's in middle school, I feel like that viability question is something that we can defend rigorously given, kind of all these factors that go into middle school.
So it sounds to me like, and I just want to make sure I understand, that the trade-off is 3 instructional days for students versus data that can be compared with other school districts. Because really what we have information we can give to parents as to where their student is. We have information that the teachers have in order to mitigate learning loss. So it's really just about comparing our district to other districts that we don't have and only at middle school. That's the trade-off that I'm hearing for 3 instructional days for students. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. I think the only other consideration would be to have data this year that is the same as data next year when we do give the SBAC. But again, we've already pointed out it's apples and oranges. And I think that even when you compare district to district this year, it's going to be apples to oranges. I mean, many districts were not able to open in person at all, where, for example, we've been able to open in person, especially in elementary, since November. So yes, it'd be comparable, but I think that would be an unfair comparison in many ways. Really becomes baseline data potentially.
But one point along those lines wouldn't I mean, that sort of takes for granted that the distant learning wasn't as high quality or wasn't as effective, right? I mean, do we just take that for granted? I was under the impression that we felt like some kids were even doing better with the distant learning.
I think that's a great point, and I think that potentially our students could do quite well this year. I just think that it's not exactly the same in other districts, is all I'm pointing out. I mean, many students in other districts, completely fell off the radar and, had many more attendance and poor grade issues than Ojai did. And so I just don't think it's not a typical comparison as we would be able to do in a typical year from district to district. But yes, Kevin, I think your point is well taken. I think that many of our kids did very well in distance learning and potentially could do quite well on the test.
Any other thoughts, Emily, or?
Well, I'll just end with letting you know that, again, this is changing daily and we're hearing new information daily and keeping a close eye on what our county counterparts are doing as well. And so we'll definitely be in those conversations as we move forward in the next week or two and keep you apprised of what we're hearing and seeing.
Thank you.
Cheryl, when would this decision need to be made and when would testing happen?
That's a great question. So we normally test in secondary at the end of April and then usually mid-May to end of May in elementary, but this is a very different year. So it's very probable that we'll wait till later in May for all schools and potentially even into the first weeks of June. which I know we end by June 10th, but as we factor in things like what Jane was saying, like maybe taking a little longer to take the test, but chunking it smaller so that you're still getting maybe more instructional time or some of your instructional time in the day, those are all considerations we have to consider. And the state, not that we want to do this, but the state has actually extended the testing all the way until mid-July. And so if there were a summer-related option, which again, I don't know how we would feasibly get kids to come take the test after school gets out, but there is a lot of extension in our opportunity to give the test a little later this year, which I think is worth doing, especially given the fact that in secondary, especially, we blocked their classes. So we'd want to make sure they have a lot of time in this second semester coursework, perhaps before giving the SBAC, should we choose to do so.
Thank you. I think my personal opinion is that the classroom instruction time is so valuable in this year, and that's where I would fall, wherever that lands.
I agree with Shelley.
I'm going to move us along to 5.4. I think everyone's had an opportunity. A Spanish language preferred family survey results. Dr. Morse.
I am moving to that slide. So let me share my screen. So we recently gave a needs assessment to our Spanish language preferred families. We want to make sure that we are meeting their needs. And I'll say that, this is one of many components of an overall goal to reach out to our families, regardless of what language they speak, and ensure that we are meeting their needs. And this is just one of those pieces that's a little more targeted. And certainly not the last one that we'll be doing. We created this document. The survey was created by administration, our homeless and foster liaison, family fund director, COPA parent group leader. It was reviewed by our bilingual school psychologist. We sent the survey through Parent Square Smart Alert. So that's where you get a text message or a phone call to 383 parents who have indicated to us that they have a preference for Spanish language messaging. And of those 110 respondents, of those 110, I just want to point out that sometimes that 383 might include 2 parents from the same household. So we wouldn't have expected to receive 383 responses back, because sometimes we have two people or more signed up in Parent Square. So 110 respondents that shared with us, and this is an overview of what we received back. So the first question was around participation. Do you participate in school events such as parent nights, club, or athletic events? You can see that 65% of our families said no, and this is definitely an area of growth for us moving forward. In terms of why there may be barriers to participation, we wanted to find out what those might be. And you can see that for 41%, it was language barriers. One of the things that we have been really focusing on this year is ensuring that all of our events have translation services available. We haven't always done that in the past, so I can see that as a family, you may assume that there would be a language barrier and not necessarily be expecting that there would be translation. But this year at our Ranger Roundup, at our any of our events, we have had translation available. No free time, 25%. I think that's important for us to think about in terms of when and how we schedule events. If we expect participation, we can't really have middle of the day events or early afternoon events potentially. Those are problematic. Or just having multiple options for families so that it's not, here's one event at this time, come or don't come, but instead saying, when we did our town halls, for example, we had tried to have 3 a night over a series of 4 or 5 days so that there was lots of opportunity for families to pick the times that worked best for them. Other reasons, smaller children at home, no childcare. I think this is actually one of the positive things about Zoom is that it's easier to participate potentially from remote locations if we are sure that we have internet access and devices. So that's something that we can consider. And no transportation was also an issue. For translation services, when the school or district has a parent event online or in person, when possible, what is your preference? You can see that 63% preferred a meeting only in Spanish and 37% preferred a single meeting in English with Spanish translation. We want to move towards potentially an environment in which families feel comfortable with translation, but we also want to meet the needs that our families are telling us. So we wanted to make sure that we had their input about how we provide these meetings. Do you consider Parent Square a useful tool to receive information about your child's school upcoming event schedules? So 98% find Parent Square to be useful in terms of the communication they receive. Were you aware that you can receive messages in your preferred language? So you can see most of our families said yes, but we would like to see this being at 100%. So you'll see in an upcoming slide that we have some training that we can do so we can reach out to this 20% who are saying that they didn't know that. Again, Parent Square is a relatively new tool. So as we continue to have year after year, we anticipate that we'll be able to kind of tackle this percentage and help families learn how to use it best as a tool for communication. Would you like the opportunity to attend a workshop to learn more about Parent Square? So you can see 70% would like more training. We have done a couple in Spanish this year, but we see that we can definitely do more. So that's something we will work on moving forward. Does your student have the tools, Chromebook, Wi-Fi, or hotspot they need to be successful? I think this is something that we should be proud of, that 96% of our families who responded said that they have what they need. For this other 3.7%, we had an option for follow-up. And so we had some families that we called and spoke to see if there's anything else that we can do around these needs, and we're following up on those. Are you aware of the district's mental health and wellness supports that are available? So you can see about 2/3 said yes, they're aware, and we have some room to grow in this particular area. Are you aware that we offer free grab and go meals? You can see 85% know that we have meals available. We continue to do outreach on this. You may have seen that the federal government just extended the free meal service through all next school year. So that's great news that we'll be able to continue to offer these style of grab and go free meals next year if we choose to do so. Have you visited the OUSD Family Fund page to learn more about our services? So you can see that we have some room to grow there. One of the reasons that this is important is we're restructuring the way that we think about offering Family Fund services. So if families sign up in Family Fund at the beginning of the year, and if they qualify for free or reduced lunches, which is really our metric of need, then we are working on pushing out services. So rather than saying, you tell us when you need something, we're saying, for example, we have AP tests. And if you receive free and reduced lunch, you get a discounted rate on AP test, and then Family Fund could, potentially pay the rest if you need that. And so we create a list of all of the parents in Family Fund and then collate that with who's taking an AP class, and we push out to them to say, did you know that we can help you pay for this AP exam? Just let us know. So things like that, where we're trying to think about how, instead of relying on families to come to us, once families are qualified, we regularly communicate opportunities for additional services to them. So we're just starting on that. Family Fund is relatively new also, so we're learning how we can best reach out to our families. So our next steps are to follow up with all of the families who requested additional contact. I believe that we have contacted all of them.
and either spoke with them or left messages so that we can follow up. And I didn't share them here because a lot of them are very specific to their families. Information from the survey will be provided to the Guiding Coalition to help inform the strategic plan for equity. So one of the things that the Guiding Coalition has been very focused on is how do we increase involvement and participation from all families. So this is one piece that we can utilize. We've talked about things like affinity groups, different things like that, so that we can help parents to feel comfortable with participating. We will be having a new family orientation in the fall, which will include Parent Square training. So for anybody who's new to the district, we'll have a new family orientation and go through a lot of different things. And then some parent workshops planned that will include Parent Square training. So lots of opportunities for us to dig into this data and to continue to improve how we provide services to our Spanish language preferred families.
This is good. I did have a quick question on the strategic equity. I forget exactly what that was. Are we going to see an update on that fairly soon, or what's the timing for that?
Maybe not fairly soon, but we have been working on it. The Guiding Coalition actually has broken into subcommittees, and we meet weekly. I meet weekly with one of the subcommittees on Thursday nights. The strategic, and then usually we have one of our Engage to Impact a place at the table events the fourth week. So we've been working on it, and we are now at the place where we're starting to draft that plan, and then it'll go back to the committee, and then we want to make sure that we get stakeholder feedback on that. And so I wouldn't expect it in the next meeting or two, but it is definitely in progress.
It looks like a lot of good data is going in it, so I'm looking forward to it.
I know that this was a topic that Liz had some questions around. Would you like to have a chance, Liz, before we continue our discussion?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Not so much discussion as maybe like a question, more of a discussion that I'm sorry. Something that could help with involvement for Spanish speaking parents would be to have, it's really simple, just having a Hispanic person in the office, so the first person you see is a Hispanic person that speaks the language. It's just much easier to build a connection, and it's also just way more difficult when you don't know the language itself, and the kids shouldn't have to translate all the time. And I know sometimes there are people that claim to know Spanish, but there's not much they can help with, because sometimes they just say hi, how are you, and that's it. But yes, having a Hispanic person who speaks, Spanish can help a lot, and make the parents themselves feel more willing to put in work with their child and be involved with their school and, events around it. My mom never really had that much of a problem because she knows English, but I experienced that with my dad. He isn't a part of my education at all because of the language itself. It's a really big gap, and to try to connect, especially because the schooling system compared to many Latin countries is very different compared to here. But yeah, just having a Hispanic person can help a lot, or of course having someone that speaks Spanish in office. The first person you see is a person of color. That would help a lot. And separate meetings, instead of just English meetings or for events, and having a separate one for Spanish helps a lot, because I've sat through the ones with the Spanish translator, and it's not as helpful or good as the English, because you can't get up and ask questions as easily, especially if the translator is with another person. But yeah, those are my own input as from my own experiences with being bilingual, and hope I could help give input.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think it's really important. I know the board has stressed our hopes for bilingual staff people in front offices. I know it's something I think the Guiding Coalition has discussed as well. And I also appreciate hearing your thoughts on those meetings, because we have had non-Latino members of the community concerned about this sort of separation of families, because there's a history in our country of sort of separate but equal, and that has very bad connotations. So it's important to, and I think that's one of the things that Dr. Morris, why she put out this survey, was to find out, well, not how the community feels about it, but how does the people who are actually Spanish language preferred, how do they feel about it? So I appreciate hearing from you about your experience. Michael, were you wanting to speak?
No, thank you.
Kevin? Shelley?
I wrote down some questions as you were going through your presentation, and now I don't understand what I wrote. One of my questions was around, and this is a huge ask, and you can tell me no, but having a separate Spanish only for those who prefer that, and translation for those who would like to be in that room. Does it have to be either or? Do we have the option of doing both? So that we're meeting the needs of all of our Spanish preferred families. And along the lines of what Liz was talking about having somebody at the front office, I have, and with your idea of the new parent orientation at the beginning of the year, I have had an idea percolating in the back of my head for a while about new family mentorship. Like if we had volunteers in English and in Spanish, I think it would help any new parent to have another parent who's in the district, who knows the ropes, who can say, hey, if you have questions, here's my number, call me, and I can help you figure out Parent Square during the year, or I can, just to answer those questions. I know it in my neighborhood, for example, that happened naturally. And as a new parent, it's helpful to know that you have somebody, and maybe that's just a PTA parent, or a PTA president. I don't know, but putting it out there.
That was kind of the affinity groups that our Guiding Coalition has been discussing, is that kind of idea, and other ways in which we can ensure that regardless of what language you speak, when you come new to the district, or even just to events, that there's a welcoming and inclusive environment.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm not in the Guiding Coalition, so I'm glad to hear other people are thinking about it too. So thank you. And I didn't see a slide, and I'm not sure if you said it, but I'm wondering if our Spanish speaking families are using Zoom. If we were doing these trainings for Parent Square on Zoom, are they more comfortable coming in person, or are we getting a lot of attendance on Zoom meetings?
We have had, when we do town halls in Spanish or trainings in Spanish, we have had people in every meeting. I think we had a scholarship presentation for families just recently. If you remember, I think I shared that we were the first district that had asked for that to be translated. And I think we had somewhere just a little short of 20 families who attended. So it seems like a platform in which people are utilizing it. I don't know how that would compare to in person, but we want to try and mitigate both the childcare and the families and the transportation issues we can do on Zoom. I can't necessarily give you a car, but I can, provide you with a hotspot and a laptop. So trying to think about how we can, how we can support that.
And I totally agree. I think Zoom really mitigates a lot of those issues. I just want to make sure that it's being used, and if it's not, why? And so that's where my thought went. But thank you.
I don't have any questions. I would I'm assuming at some point there's a family survey, non-Spanish language preferred families that'll have similar questions, yes?
Yes, but not similar in, a lot of this was about attendance and events and things like that. We would want to kind of reconstruct it. And then part of what's happening is we're thinking about, how do we're not really at a place where data about COVID is useful. And so how do we have a survey that's not about COVID that's useful to us? But yes, we will be working on constructing that, if that makes sense.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I would love to commend staff for reaching out to our families to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our families. And I love that we particularly focused on a large subset of our population that, isn't always asked. And that's so important. And I'm really grateful that we did this. And I hope to see us make a habit of it, So great job.
I'd like to thank Linda Jordan. She really spearheaded this, and then Javier helped with a lot of it. Kat is our translator who works in the district, and so it was really a team effort. But I commend them for putting this together and making that happen.
Agreed. They did an excellent job.
Anything else, Liz or anybody? Okay.
I just want to agree with Rebecca. I'm so thrilled to see our district really focusing efforts in this area.
Thank you. Those are our presentations. We are going to move on to our action items. It is 8 o'clock. Do we feel a need for a 5-minute break? Okay, we will be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. I'm just checking in. David, if you could remove the slide, because I can't see as many people. Thank you. Just waiting on Dr. Morse. Okay, welcome back, everybody. First item, action item is our consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. Item 6.2 is establishment of duties for new position, speech language pathology assistant. If there's any questions or if there's a motion to approve.
I would just say we have Katrina Madden is here tonight, our Director of Special Education, in case there are any questions on this.
Out of curiosity, is Kathy Zucker still doing anything?
I hope you didn't stay in your office, Katrina, just for this.
Oh, of course. There was plenty to do, though. No, Kathy Zucker is no longer working with us, as far as I know.
I believe she retired.
Yes, I believe that was what I heard.
I thought for a while, though, she was still doing occasional stuff.
I would move to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
I feel a little guilty just saying aye so quickly since you're here, Katrina, but aye. Thank you for being here.
And Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Katrina. 6.3.1 and 6.3.2 are our annual approval resolutions, recognition of the California Teacher Appreciation Week, May 10 through 14, and our Classified School Employee Week, May 16 through 22. Do we want to read through these or just sort of express our own appreciation?
I would rather express our own appreciation.
Me too. I think this year in particular, I mean, every year is special and we know our teachers and our classified employees work really hard, but this past year has been extra challenging, extra time commitment, extra frustration, extra effort, extra care. And I really want you all to know that there's nothing we can do in these weeks that will really show our true appreciation. And we appreciate you each and every day. So I would, I'll make a motion to approve both resolutions.
I'm happy to second it. I echo the comments. Both our teachers and our staff have performed heroically this year. And so if there was a way to like make this double day of the year, that would be great.
Yeah, ditto.
All those in favor? Sorry, Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye, and I want to go on record as agreeing with everyone. I can't thank you all enough for all you have done for this ballet this year, and know that we are truly, truly appreciative.
Rebecca, did you want to chime in, or I can't tell on Zoom. It's hard to
I
tell.
would love to. Working in education every day, I see the sacrifices that both classified and teachers make. And I know this has been incredibly difficult and emotional and draining, and probably the hardest year in education we've all faced. And you guys pulled through for our kids, and it's a beautiful thing you've done. So thank you.
And I'll vote aye also. That passes. Those two resolutions pass 5-0. 6.4.1, discussion of school bus purchase. I would like to just respond. Angie had mentioned the school bus purchase versus salaries, and I would like to just point out that the bus purchase or van purchases would come out of COVID funding, not our general fund, which is how we pay for our salaries. But Tiffany, did you want to talk about the bus? I don't know. Are there questions about the bus, or do we
I would just like to add on Cindy's behalf that she feels very strongly that an extra bus can continue to bring in additional revenue, and she just wanted me to express that. That they were able to put our 3 buses to good use with Camper Ma 2 summers ago. Of course, last summer was on hold due to COVID, but she feels very strongly that this purchase not only will bring such a large benefit to us, especially given the challenges with transportation and COVID this year and with athletics, but in ongoing years that it will likely bring in revenue for our district ongoing for many years.
I would just add that this particular bus came up to visit us, and Cheryl was able to take a look at it. But it is at a discount because another district had ordered it. Generally, buses take quite a long time to be able to, you order them and inspections, and it's a really long process. So for whatever reason, and I cannot for the life of me imagine a district that doesn't need more school buses right now, but somehow a district dropped off of this bus purchase, and so we were able to put it on hold. It is pending your approval, but on hold and at a discount. So
I move to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor? Oh, actually, I would like to make a quick comment. But Angie, I am in support of raises. 2 buses and raises. Kevin?
I'm sorry. I was trying to find my mute. Just quickly, I'm in support, but I'm wondering. I hope there's some way of sort of maximizing the efficiency of our use of buses that will. And I know one of the issues here, and which should be ameliorated somewhat, is the use for sports, because I think it's one, really nice for sports to be able to get a ride in a bus. 2, it's great for teams to be able to travel together. And, my kids have happened to be part of sports that historically have not had district transportation. And I do think it would just be nice to expand that support for other sports than, the obvious ones that typically use the buses.
Especially several years ago, I think when Andy was here was when we purchased those 2 buses. We did the 2 buses with the understanding that it would service our athletes, and unfortunately it didn't. So, yeah.
I did have a quick question. There's a line here. It's anticipated there continue to be reduced capacity next year on the buses. Why?
it just depends on the social distancing requirement.
Oh, okay. All right.
So,
Right.
right now the recommendations are 1 per seat, which significantly takes your capacity down. And as we have vaccines and testing and things like that, we, are able to shuffle that. But it's hard to predict. But even without COVID, we had a need for additional transportation, particularly to support athletics, as was already mentioned.
Thanks.
So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to go for the roll call in support. Aye or nay. Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And Jane, aye. That passes 5-0. Bond update 6.4.2. I see Alan and Adam present. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here. I don't know, we need to go item by item, but if there's something special that you've brought with you for tonight?
There is.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to library pictures. So
yes.
Well, we have a couple.
We did
Yay.
it this week for the library promotion.
Yeah, Alan was out there with the team, Linda and Tiffany and the team, and they did a video like, as Tiffany alluded to, that'll be forthcoming. But we have some pictures for you tonight.
I think we're only seeing part of the screen again.
Should not be seeing any of this screen, actually. I just need to, for some reason, I closed out this, so give me 1 second.
No problem.
You can talk while I'm doing this if you want.
In the meantime, is there any questions on anything on the update, actually?
not a question, but I'm really, really thrilled to see the cafeteria at Matilaha being used. When I saw the lights in the background of Teresa Dutter's screen, I was super excited.
Yeah, it's really a great venue for all kinds of functions, so it's exciting.
Yeah, and the timing of it coming online at the same time we had a water disaster at Nordhofskirchen was perfect. And one thing Adam didn't put on the bond update that I thought I would just throw out there is that I actually moved to Ojai this past week, so I live here now.
Wow.
That is my fault. That is my oversight. I'm sorry for that.
It's great. And also, it's exciting to see. I mean, there'll be stuff obviously coming to us because there's a lot of items on here that are getting their punch lists.
There are, and yeah, I guess to touch on that briefly, it's still the same. I think we alluded to it last month. We're trying to lay the groundwork for a lot of the stuff we have coming. It has been a little different for Alan and I guess, because we've been, just running with project after project after project since we got hired. And so we've kind of pumped the brakes and have started doing laying a lot of the groundwork for the future larger projects when it comes to pre-qualifications and new contracts and the new architects and all of the above. So it's a little weird for us this last couple months. I'm not just running project to project to project, but it's exciting considering what's coming down the pike.
Master plans.
Master plans, exactly. That's probably the biggest, actually. So yeah, here's our bond photo update for the month. And this is obviously the new library. And they are working on some punch list items still. Very few.
Can't imagine how the staff for the library must be going crazy. Can't wait to get the books on the shelves, right?
Exactly. So this is just a little overview of the furniture, the colors, obviously the kind of the setup as a whole.
I would like to point out the ceiling, which is not the most exciting part, but to me it is because it was so much work. How it's open here and then it's got the tectum over here. Just point out, and I think it looks fabulous when you're inside.
I have to say it was the first thing I noticed of me, and I totally agree. It looks great.
It really came together nicely. Once it was all kind of done, Alan and I were in there saying, wow, this looks really good. So it was a nice change.
It costs enough, it better.
Exactly.
It forever introduced me to the term tectum.
Yes. So yeah, here's the furniture, kind of the layout, the floors, all of the above. Obviously, we're still waiting on books. Those columns in the middle are going to be wrapped still with wood wrap to match a lot of the furniture and the decor. So, and then I think there's some face plates that are still to come. And again, just some punch list items, right, Alan?
Right. Yeah. There's a few little things on the shelving and and the display case that just need a little tweaking.
And
And just to point out, you can't really tell in the photos, this looks small, but it's really gigantic. I mean, this whole space back here is another room. There's another room back here. So it's much more extensive than just these kind of, this is the main area, but part of the thing that's really exciting about this is that there's multiple spaces that can be used.
Right, there are 5 breakout rooms. 3 of them are fairly small for like 6 to 8 people, and 2 of them are for larger groups.
It's
Yeah.
just beautiful.
And then in the picture on the right there, the door on the right is obviously into the librarian's office and the book storage, and the book on the left there is into the maker space and everything in there. So it's like the cafeteria or like the dining hall in Matilla. It's going to be a great space for a lot of different uses. So,
and there is a window from the librarian's office and from the CEC office that looks out into the main floor, so that they can kind of observe and supervise things from there. Plus, you may not realize it, but those 2 doors and windows are in a shear wall, which took an act of Congress.
Yeah.
This looks spectacular. You're building signature spaces, you know that, right? This is just gorgeous.
Yeah, it was exciting. I was actually over there locking up one evening when we were doing some of the sample furniture, and my kids got to poke their head in. And my oldest is going into Matilla next year, but he was super excited to see it. Obviously, he's like, "Wow!" So.
And Adam, are the lights here those are the solar tube lights, correct?
Correct.
So that's natural lighting coming in that we're seeing there.
And what's also interesting about that is that the LED lights, which are the long rectangular lights, those are smart lights. So depending on how much ambient light is coming in, they go up or down in their illumination.
We're actually thinking about replicating some of these components in our pilot classroom, from the concrete to maybe this type of open ceiling with some sound dampening, just to raise, because some of our wings at Nordhoff have very low ceilings, and then maybe solar lights as well, so that we don't have to utilize electricity to light our classrooms.
Exactly. It's really nice to be in there during the day, and I mean, you walk in and the lights aren't even on yet, and it's extremely bright.
Yeah.
So it's great.
The floor is beautiful. I love the concrete.
Yeah, it came out so nice. You'll see on the next slide, actually, we have another flooring project going on, and so on the photo on the left this is the shop classroom, so H1A. And it had asbestos containing tile. So when we removed it, and it had little bubbles in it, and what we learned is that there's an acronym, I don't remember what it's called, but it's essentially concrete cancer. And there's a fossil in concrete that was poured at this time that actually eats away the concrete. So you can see all the little divots on the left, those are actually pits in the concrete. And so when we took up the tile, we had to then grind it down. That's the top picture you see in the middle. The bottom's where they did an overlay, like a self-leveler concrete, and then they grind it down again. And then the picture on the right was actually taken this morning, and that is, they go over it with a grout, and then now they will polish it, and it'll look similar to the library. Actually, it'll probably look even better than the library.
You said this was a shop. This is Fender's shop?
This is Fender's classroom, yes.
Oh my gosh, it looks amazing.
So it was it's a nice small space. It's a good test space for us to kind of see how this would look. And frankly, the floor was just in such bad shape when we took up the tile, when we had the asbestos company take it out, that it was a good chance to try to do something and see how it would really look if we really put some resources into it. And Anchor Concrete has done an amazing job. He did the library, he did this one. He does a fantastic job. So
I would never have recognized that. It looks amazing.
Yeah. So, and it's not done. Like I said, the picture on the right is just the grout coat, and then he'll start polishing. So it's pretty exciting.
Is it slippery when it's wet?
A little.
No, the coefficient of friction is pretty substantial. I think they're using a 400 grit.
Yeah. It's similar to the dining hall, actually. So
It will be a little bit, obviously, if there's standing water, but like if you throw a bucket of water, of course, but wet shoes or whatnot, no, not at all. All right.
And the concrete will last, right? Like we don't have to worry about replacing it in 5 years when it starts to fall apart.
It'll last, and that was one of the discussions we obviously had with David's team, the maintenance and operations team, and the custodial staff is, you know, the ease of cleaning this. There's no waxing of the floors. There's no cleaning of the carpets. It's literally just a dry mop. And if there's some stains, for instance, just like the dining hall, it's a little bit of Dawn soap and some hot water, and you're good to go. We don't need the chemicals and all of the above. So it should make it a lot easier.
Quick question. It looks great when it's polished. How durable is the polish?
It's fairly durable, actually. He does recommend that we burnish it like once a year, and he said, you know, you could buy a burnisher for a couple grand, and he said you can knock out the whole campus in a matter of days. So it's very easy, and again, lack of chemicals and shampooing and wax and all of the above. So
This is not as pretty.
this is a work in progress. So this is our prototype room that Tiffany alluded to earlier. What was in here is carpet that was over the same tiles that were in Fender's shop, actually. And so we took out the carpet, found the asbestos containing tiles. Venterra came out and took those out. We ripped all the Furtex off the wall, all the ceiling tiles down, and are kind of starting from scratch as our prototype room. What we found is the walls are actually just plywood. Behind the Furtex, it was just plywood. All that stuff you see on the walls is just glue. So the Furtex was glued up there and then screwed into the plywood.
So there's no drywall.
There's no drywall. The acoustics, obviously, the noise traveling from room to room is partially because of just the plywood walls. And some interesting stuff that we're finding, obviously, that whole front area that Tiffany's showing you, that's where the chalkboard used to be, and then the whiteboard. But it's actually at the bottom, right where that blue cable is. The whole thing is the HVAC return, and it goes up to the top plenum there, and then funnels to the middle and then up. It's the oddest architectural thing I've seen, I think, yet here. So it was one of those things that we've had a couple HVAC guys come in just because we're like, you got to see this, check this out. And they can't believe it. So we're trying to redesign a little bit of that. But aside from the asbestos containing tiles that Venterra took out, all the demo was handled by our bond skilled maintenance worker too, in a matter of a couple of days. So we were able to knock out all the demo in probably 4 days.
Yeah.
So
Also, as part of this, our cabling is not great. And there's a lot of improvements that we can make to this cable, some of the cables, and David could jump in and add more, but there's a lot of improvements to be made there as well.
Well, one of the things that about the cabling is that there was all the electrical outlets and a lot of the that sort of cabling that was in the classroom before the demo was all surface mounted, and now we've got access to be able to hide that kind of thing and make the classroom look a lot better as well.
right, and I think David said there's 2 or 3 times as many cables as there needs to be nowadays due to the new cabling. And so as we're kind of redesigning this classroom as the prototype, that plenum up top where the return is, there's a thought of putting just a couple return grills in there and actually building a little bit bigger soffit. And then we could run all the cables through classroom to classroom to classroom through the soffit. And then it's a lot easier, obviously, to run the cables, and they can do it in-house. That's what David was saying. If we give them a clear path, it's a lot easier to handle in-house too. So
yeah, just to kind of jump in there. So over the years, we changed from 5 computers in the back of the room, plus a phone, plus an access point. So now most of our classrooms only need 2 or 3 cables, and we have 30 or 40 cables running through various rooms, jumpered room to room. And we've been doing a lot of work. So I've been meeting with 2 different vendors to talk about ways to set our classrooms up with conduits while we have the walls down, so that pulling cables and putting monitors places doesn't require extensive raceway that just kind of looks ugly anyways. So we can kind of build in all of our needs while we have it torn apart. At least that's the goal. I'm sure there will be things that change in the future, but we're looking at kind of doing like an electrician's box in the studs that everything would run back to, so you wouldn't even see any of the cables in the classroom. You just have magic HDMI on every wall and Ethernet and where it needs to be. So that's the goal, at least. If we can get there, I'm super stoked.
One of our goals as part of this, and this, you'll hear more about this, is to really move our classrooms towards being kind of a 360-degree environment. So it's not like, well, here's the whiteboard and here's where my cabling is, so I'm going to stand at the front of the room and everybody's in rows and where you have to look at the front, but really providing more access so that students can work in groups. There are different areas. There are TVs in multiple places so kids can see. Regardless of where they sit, having audio enhancement so that kids can hear regardless of where they sit. So this is a classroom refresh, but it's really a way of designing our classrooms for the greatest learning environment for students. So it's tied very closely to where we would want to, see our teaching and learning go.
And designing for joy. We're excited to introduce some color into the classrooms a little bit.
How joyful is this?
Right, exactly.
People going looking at that.
Exactly. So,
and you have to see it in person. I don't think the pictures do it justice, even though they look phenomenal. I was just in there yesterday, and the space is really awesome.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of show you, this is obviously a work in progress, the prototype, but that's what we're heading towards, and that's what we started with. Just a couple pictures of the dining hall. Obviously you guys saw it earlier, but with all the furniture lit up, it's being used. These are kind of like the final pictures, and just it looks fantastic in there. So this was obviously a push before Matilaha students came back as well. But what we did is part of the contract included just adding some bark mulch out front. But it obviously stopped a little way. So what we were able to do is add some DG paths in coming down from the stairways, and the new picnic tables like you saw putting together, and it just really kind of ties the space together. And that was all handled in-house as well. So it was a team effort as well.
Adam, before you go off this slide, I'm just seeing all this open space. Is there something that's going to be here for shade?
I was just noticing, Michael, the trees in the background that are in boxes. Where are those going?
Oh, of course.
So those are being moved actually tomorrow morning. They were put in a clump mistakenly by a contractor, but they're being moved around. I was out there this evening painting the circles where they need to go. But those are trees that'll stay in the boxes for now. They will obviously get bigger, but the idea is also that those are trees that will be planted on site after we kind of go through and do the quad planning.
So we're in the process of a comprehensive landscaping plan for Matilaha, because we've been kind of piecemealing here and there, but we have a lot of things to consider, both the front of the camp. I mean, it's just such a massive campus, but we also want to make sure that we have shade, that we have path of travel for kids. So we walked around, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, right before kids came back, with a group, and we're looking at kind of a comprehensive plan that also includes that space that's in between the library, that outdoor space that's in between the library and the auditorium, because that's not utilized particularly well. And so really having a design for the whole campus, and then probably implementing in phases. But we know whatever we do, I have a general rule of thumb for Adam, Allen, and David, that if we cut a tree down, they have to plant 3. And so we cut down a couple of palm trees at Matilaha, and that's why we have these new trees. So, and we get another one this Friday for Arbor Day. So I think
we have 2. I got them to do 2 trees. So yes. We're close to 3.
So the thought was we would bring in the box trees. It adds a little shade for now. They will get a little bit bigger, but then also it's something that we will use on campus. They're sized appropriately for the campus, and we'll move them around to their permanent homes when we get a chance. But yeah, and part of Measure K was obviously we had signaled out all of these areas that need to be redone on Matilah campus already. So just trying not to, we didn't want to put anything too permanent in there yet, knowing that we want to add more shade or extend the dining area even out further or whatever we wanted to do still. So.
And while we're on the subject of doing things in-house, I'd like to give a shout out to Kelly Haslam, because his skill set is awesome and his attitude is great. He's got a real can-do willingness attitude. And so he's doing a fabulous job for us.
Yeah, he's been an amazing addition to the team, I will say. He tackles anything.
He does anything and everything with a smile. He's very appreciated.
Yeah.
While we're on Matilah, it's not part of the bond update, but I just want to say that we signed the purchase order today for the part of our disc golf course installation. So we're excited. We will be putting in a 9-hole disc golf course at Matilah with the throwing pads. Am I saying that right, David?
Yeah, tee boxes, but yeah.
Okay. Whatever. Throwing pads.
Them, yeah, tee pads.
And the baskets.
Yep.
And I'm going to stop now because that's all I clearly don't play disc golf, but so we're excited for that.
Where is that going to go? I keep hearing about it and I can't visualize how it's going to work exactly. What can somebody describe that for me?
David has a whole plan.
Okay, David, I'll just call you.
Yeah, I will send the plan out to the board if you guys would like to see the pictures.
Great.
San Antonio, moving along. Just some highlights though, since the last time, obviously we had a photo update. The photo on the left is the new basketball courts. The nets are up, the hoops, everything are up. And you'll notice the tennis court basketball. One of the big addition or subtractions, I guess, actually, is we don't have the fence on the interior of the campus anymore. So before, obviously, if you remember, they had to go through a little tiny man gate kind of right in the middle. And it was just all 4 sides were fenced in by a 10-foot high chain link fence. So now we have the 12-foot all the way around to hopefully prevent less balls going in the playground or in the parking lot. But it's open to the rest of the campus now, so the kids don't feel like they're kind of running into a corral.
And it is amazing to not park in the dirt. Been there a few times this month and I'm like, it's so great. And there's a very nice drop-off lane that I see parents using, and it's just the pickup and drop-off is so much nicer.
There's actually enough room now for a drop-off lane on the sidewalk, a passing lane on the right, and then which eventually or ultimately gets converted to 2 drop-off lanes because parents just drop off there as well. And then there's enough for cars to still go on the right side. So it's great. So yeah, and then on the, go back one real quick. I wanted to show actually just the new entrance off of Grand and the new trash corral for both, so that Airbnb cannot dump there anymore. Next was
I'll just throw out something, which is I'd love to see us find a way to allow the public to use those really nice courts. Matilah is such a used and great community resource, and on the East End, this would be wonderful as well. Used to be people would be able to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is a man gate for access, which is of course lockable at the northwest corner of that, near the trash bins.
Yeah.
Out by the baseball field where I saw a guy who looked a lot like you out there recently. Adam?
I don't know what you're talking about. And then, sorry, one back. There we go. The new ADA ramp and obviously the new flag. So obviously this ramp makes the A building ADA compliant in conjunction, obviously, with the bathroom that we showed you a couple months ago. So, and then we obviously have a new secure ADA path of travel. We've got the bollards all the way down, truncated domes over to the ADA stalls, and the flagpole out front that was missing. And I heard about it countless times from Joe DeVito. And so, but it was one of those things that Robin mentioned that they didn't have one out front. So now we have a brand new tall flagpole out there. So it looks really good. And bathrooms, I showed you this last month, or 2 months ago, but I wanted to just highlight it. We finally got the new windows in. They were, I think, 12-week lead time, but we finally got new windows in, dual pane, energy efficient. So now these older bathrooms at Miramani are finally done. Touch-free, new fixtures, FRP, waterless urinals, and new windows. And the windows look fantastic. So
It's a big upgrade to get rid of the link, the metal link over the windows that are element or prison windows. The element.
yes, exactly. They look much better. So, and then these are just two quick things. I know obviously on the update we have stuff that Kelly is handling, and one of them is a locker room refresh that we're handling in-house. And we were going like gangbusters. Now all the kids are back in sports, so we've kind of pulled back on that a little bit. But one of them was all these corners in all of the locker room, or both the locker rooms, were just hammered from the drywall. It was just from, the kids going through football, all the kids running through PE. So what we did is Kelly was able to fix, patch, paint all the drywall, and then got all new corner guards all the way around as well. So they only go up about 4 feet, but it'll protect the drywall. And then obviously once the kids are this summer, the plan is to paint it and replace the plumbing fixtures and the tile that's broken in the restrooms. So
Is there a plan for the floor in this?
there is. So the plan is to redo the floor as well. We just haven't come up with a color or flooring system yet, but the plan is to do that as well this summer. So, but again, we were going and then we had to just peel back a little bit due to sports being reintroduced. All right. Any questions for Alan or I?
Guys are doing a great job. I'm so jealous that there's so few sites in Ojai and you can make so much progress in such a short period of time. It's so nice. A great job.
It is nice. Thank you.
Really appreciate all the work you guys have put in. And I even noticed I'm not sure who it was out painting the fence in front of Matilaha, but it's looking really nice all around our district. So thank you so much.
That was Kelly.
That was Kelly.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you.
I would just have a all beautiful thank you. I'm very excited. I can't wait to see the library. I have little concerns about adding the ceilings onto this classroom refreshes. That seems a lot of money to spend that might be spent better somewhere else. So just if you guys can help kind of keep track of how much does that cost, what the advantages and disadvantages and that kind of thing.
We're definitely cost conscious on the prototype, knowing that we're going to have to replicate this, many times over, and going through a few different ideas and systems that would work. I will say that the ceilings unfortunately do need to be done because we have mismatched tiles in there. Some of them are falling down from, roof leaks way before we obviously repaired the roofs.
A lot of them do look bad. I know that.
And we can't even match the old one because they don't make those ceiling tiles anymore. But yeah, we are definitely trying to be cost conscious, knowing that, in the D wing alone, there's 12 rooms that we have to replicate it in. So. All right.
Okay, there's no action items. All right with everyone if I move on? Thank you, Adam and Ellen and David.
Thanks, guys.
6.4.3, approval of architectural firms. Oh, I guess you guys are staying for that. It's my understanding that it's just a pre-approved list. We haven't hired any of them. We've just put them through the processes to make sure they're firms that we feel we can work with when we put out RFPs in the future. Yes?
Correct.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how much was explained about the process we went through, but it was pretty extensive. And we put out the RFQ to the world. We got 21 responses that were really good caliber responses. We narrowed that down to 12, and David and Adam and I interviewed all 12 of the respondents. And then we narrowed that down to the list that you have. Some of them then people we had already been working with, so they were sort of, grandfathered in. But yeah, but this gives us the latitude to use an architecture firm that we think fits a particular project. So this one might fit the pool, somebody else might fit the cafetorium or the stadium and sports complex or something like that. So, and even on small projects, we've got local people besides just the one firm we've been primarily using for Measure J. We've got local people we can say, okay, well, let's give them this small project and let's see how they do on that.
After we were done interviewing, we kind of laid out, not only this kind of the scores that we did, but we listed all the projects that we have coming up and kind of put in the architectural firms that we thought could do those. And that's kind of how we came up with the list of, these guys would be really good at this. And then frankly, it gives a little competition too. If we're doing the pool or, the cafetorium or whatever it might be, and we've got a few firms that we want to ask, we can ask them, give us a bid on this project. I think what we've learned over the last 2 years now is one firm is definitely not good at everything. So.
Could you just speak actually to why this methodology of sort of establishing a stable of potential architects versus just finding identifying a particular project and then sending out an RFP?
It streamlines it for one thing. We already have them pre-qualified and we've already gone through the trouble to get to know them a little bit. And so we can kind of see where their wheelhouse is. And like Adam said, maybe we'll pick 3 for the pool and let them vie for the business.
Yeah, we'll still use a few, like you said, but this allows us to pick from these 9. And yeah, for instance, the pool, there's probably 4 of them that could do a really good job, but then we can bring all 4 of them in and say, okay, this is our vision. Give us, and this is where we want to put it. This is what we want. Give us a price. And it creates a little competition too within the project, but not having to do an RFP every time for every single project just helps streamline the projects a little bit.
I guess that's my question. Sort of begs the question: when does an RFP go out, and when do you just rely on a price that you've been given back today, as opposed to something 6 months from now or 9 months from now, or on like the pool, I would assume would be an RFP, and that's a huge project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could technically do architectural RFP whenever we wanted to be honest with you. And that was one of the reasons we decided to do it now. Was the last one hasn't been done in quite some time. And talking to David a little bit about the last one, my understanding is that there wasn't as big of a turnout. And when we got 21, it was great. So we got to choose from firms from, up north all the way to San Diego. And so we feel like we got a good response that we were able to whittle down to the people that will serve us on the future projects coming up.
So Adam, my question, I think it's tied in with Kevin. The assumption is that if let's say you just put out an RFP, RFQ, whatever you're calling it, for a cafetorium, you wouldn't get anybody besides the 21 who had already responded. There's not somebody out there who wasn't interested in responding to this that might be interested in responding in the future?
Probably not. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it. And I would say we would then again have to interview them. And I think for speed of the projects, this seems to be the way to go. I do think, again, it's possible. There could have been somebody that missed it, just like bidding any project. We just because we bid the library in August, maybe somebody missed it, and if we bid it again, we'll get somebody else. So I think we could say that anytime. But I do think we got such a good response that we feel pretty confident that, and we have everywhere from a firm, again, a local guy, to a regional that has 18 people, to a firm that has 450 employees, and they're a national firm that has a structural, civil, and a mechanical engineer all in their office. So I think we've got a good array of firms.
So just to circle back, because I'm not quite sure I heard the answer. So we have like you're proposing a pre-cleared panel of architects. When there's a project coming up, will they bid on that project? Because you mentioned something about competition, right? And so presumably you're not just going to pick one vendor, they're going to give us a price and then we're going to go, right?
Nope.
Okay.
No, so what we'll do is we have the 9, assuming it's approved tonight, we have the 9. So we can put out this project to all 9. We can put it on to 4 of them. But yeah, we would release the RFP for this project to these firms. And then we can also word the RFP to where it's best value or best fit. We can word it to where we don't necessarily have to go with just the low bidder on the professional design portion.
So it's kind of like TSA pre-check, right? Like you're all getting on the plane, but one line is shorter, right? Because you've essentially been cleared. So yes. This is, but you still go through security, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same kind of concept.
Thank you.
If we, for instance, put out the RFQ for the pool again, and we put it out to everybody again, we could have another, 20, 25 people come in, and then we have to score them. Then we have to interview a certain portion again as well. I think we have established that we have a good list in the 9.
And also, one of the things it also does is it gives us the opportunity to have different architects working on different projects at the same time. So that you're not overwhelming one architect with all of your projects.
Right. And it was interesting, as we alluded to earlier, it was interesting in the interviews that there are definitely some firms that, pools, athletic facilities, that is their bread and butter. And then you have others that are, great at performing arts, modernizations. And so it kind of backed up what we were thinking over the last couple of years, is that we need to be very selective about who we choose for these particular projects, because, we had one firm come in. They have 10 pools currently in construction. They've done 40 over the last 3 years. And then you have another firm that comes and says, yeah, we can do pools. We've done, 3 in the last 5 years. And to their credit, they have, and they've done great pools. But, you want the guy that the pool consultant's going, these guys are the best, hands down. So they limit the change orders, their scope, their plans are tight. That's kind of what we're looking for, especially on these larger projects.
I would move to approve if there are no more questions.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Jane? Aye. That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Almost finished. We are on future agenda items. Is there anything anyone would like to bring forward from the agenda items to a meeting or add to the list?
I have something that I'm hoping to see on next month's agenda. So in December, when CSBA holds their annual convention, they have something called the Golden Bell Awards, which are awards given to certain projects or classes in a district. And it's part of the process for a Golden Bell comes from the board, and the board suggesting something in their district. And so I am proposing that we look at our CTE dance group this year, who I would say during COVID has done a phenomenal job of figuring out how to be creative and innovative, and also really bringing in the technology that industry is using into our CTE pathway. And we've never done this before as a district, had a Golden Bell nominee, and I would like to explore that potentiality next month, if there are no objections.
It's like a cool idea.
And obviously we discussed what kind of process that takes and who would do that process and who has the time to do that process and all that. Okay, any others?
The deadline for the application is mid-June, so it would be, you're right, Jane, and therefore need to be on next month's agenda.
I would add, which I think is going to come back anyway, but the expanded learning grant plan. I would like to see that.
And I would add music. I mean, I think we kind of didn't do it because of COVID, but I had asked a while back about it and was thinking about it again. I think I took it off the parking lot at some point, but I'd like to put it back on.
Can you just reiterate what it is about music? I mean, when you say music,
particularly the elementary, and what our plans are and what we have going and what our plans are.
So like a presentation.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.